Welcome to Durbania Live, the Justice League post-game show. Got a bunch of friends, a bunch of nerds together to talk about what we wanted to see in Zack Snyder's Justice League, but now it's here. And the time has come to talk about what we got.
I have a second chance. I am not going to waste it.
So welcome to the Justice League post-game show. And this square next to me, you have Seth, who is son of this guy here, Steve. And then below, we have Rudy. I hear, is somebody watching this live and it's playing through their microphone?
Bring that sensitive area down there.
Oh, you know what? That might be me. Hold up.
Uh-oh.
Yep, that's me.
On top of that,
I thought it might be me. It's not me.
No, I had the live chat up.
Yes, it's the beauty of going live, the things we can't edit. So since Steve, gosh, I can't point the right way. Since Steve and Seth are on the same YouTube channel, whichever one of you wants to introduce your channel, then we'll get to Rudy.
Well, my name is Stevie Cade. My son, who's sitting across from me, and he's above me here, is Seth Craven. We are on the channel Film Trigger. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Vero, and obviously right here on YouTube, where we talk about movies and junk.
Rudy?
And I am Rudy from Rudy's Movie Reviews, and I am a huge DC fan, and I cannot wait to talk about this moment, this experience that I had with some fellow DC fans. And again, you can follow me on YouTube. Just type in Rudy's Movie Reviews, and you'll see me and find me there.
Excellent. So definitely subscribe to Film Trigger, subscribe to Rudy. I can't even talk. Rudy's movie reviews. It's because I'm excited. I just want to get into this Justice League talk. And honestly, we got a lot to say. We had a lot of stuff we were incredibly hopeful for, and I feel like none of us was let down. So in the midst of our hopes and our dreams, they were actually reached in a film. So I figure we went through the pregame show and talked about different aspects. So let's go through those same aspects and talk about how our expectations were met. So this one's going to be really fast. It is that whole Imax bars on the side aspect ratio. Did that bother anybody?
Absolutely not. Not whatsoever. After 3 minutes, I didn't even care. I didn't even notice it, to be honest.
Yeah, me neither. How about you, Steve? And
Nope,
Seth?
not even a little bit.
I when they first said that was going to be the case, I thought maybe it might bother me, but once the movie started, you're in and just you don't even think about it, or at least I didn't. And
it looked great. You know, I'm watching it on a 4K TV, so it just shined. Everything about it looked spectacular. So, you guys, the bars disappeared from me.
Yeah, and you know what? I have a Samsung. I don't know what TVs you guys have, but they have like a picture mode where you can change it to 16:9 if you want. If they're really that much of a problem, you can just change it and get the full widescreen effect if you want.
Why would you change it? Just
I wouldn't, but for a lot of people apparently.
Let's take a bet. Who thinks Cody Leach did?
Well, we will find out on Sunday because I will have to bring that up to him for the state of the DCEU. So awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, the next thing we talked about in our pregame show, and because it's my channel and this is my absolute favorite superhero of all time, our MVP, the Man of Steel. Now, he had a very cool storyline building in this now epic trilogy. Movie 1, he doesn't know where he fits in the world. Zod presents him a choice, Krypton or Earth, and he chooses the world that adopted him. Batman v Superman, Lex Luthor turns the world he chose against him and even gets into Superman's head, making him doubt himself. Yet in the end, after his talk with Ghost Dad, he comes to this realization, just as Martha was Jonathan's reminder that there is good in the world, so is Lois. Lois is his world. So he laid his life down for his world. Now we get into this, and holy freaking crap, did they do the raising of Superman infinitely better than Justice League. Whoever wants to take it first, take it first. Go.
I'm going to jump in here and say, yes, they did it. The raising of Superman just made so much more sense, and it gave a deeper meaning behind it. It gave Flash a better meaning in the movie.
Yes.
And not only just in that moment, but it played out later in the at the end of the film. It just came together so much more cleanly. It was smooth and it made sense. And the mother box didn't just get taken randomly from behind, the ship. There was a whole scene with Silas there that was explained, but yeah. And when Superman came back and he's fighting everybody, it just worked.
Oh.
It wasn't campy.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, hey, look at Superman doing evil things. Woohoo. No, there was a heaviness. There was a worry, a concern, it was done so much more neatly than it was.
Talk about heaviness. Now, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, you all see spoilers in the ticker down below, right? Good. Talk about heaviness. When Cyborg, activates the ship and he gets the nightmare vision and he sees Wonder Woman dead. He sees Darkseid kill Aquaman and he sees Superman holding the dead bones of freaking Lois Lane. And then giving into the darkness of Darkseid. I love it as the ship is going, this is an irreversible action. 5, you cannot undo this. 4, then finally Cyborg says no. And the Flash goes, go, and he takes off. And it's like, I want Superman back more than all of you. Like, well, what did I just see? It added a true weight.
It showed the nightmare vision wasn't just through through Bruce's eyes. This is a universal thing that was shared, through Cyborg. So that was I was scared in that moment. I'm like, I don't know if I want him to do it now. I
wasn't the only one. It really shocked. Like, hey, what's happening? Because it's that moment when the ship activates and Flash goes, you're kind of expecting the same thing from the Whedon cut from a few years ago, and then it goes into that whole scene where you see the death of all these heroes. Like, is this happening now, or is this like a flashback? What's going on? I totally freaked out. I got a little frightened when I saw that, but totally different tone. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, Seth, what are your thoughts on that?
I really like the scene as a whole. Like you said, I was worried that it would be a little too close to Justice League, but they did it differently, and they did it in a different context to where it worked. And plus, I love the scene right before they try to resurrect him, where they're all standing around the table, and Flash is standing there, and he's like, "I know we're all thinking the same thing." And then Cyborg does the projection of Superman, and I love that part a lot.
If I can just say this, I know a lot. I've seen a lot of reviews, including everybody here, about the Snyder cut, and I've seen a lot of people nitpick, saying that Superman doesn't really have a lot of screen time. But if you look at the trilogy, he's not in the movie quite often. I mean, out of the 7 chapters, he's in only, I think, the last 2. Yeah. But his presence is there throughout the entire film. It starts right from the get-go when Batman tells Alfred, I made him a promise at his grave. So his spirit and his presence is over all the characters and their motivations and what they're trying to do. So he's present more than ever compared to other films, if you ask me.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with that. Going back to something Seth said, when Cyborg is doing that projection, I love that discussion they had, because the one thing I did like about the theatrical cut, I didn't mind this debate. Kind of the Pet Cemetery joke, will he be Superman if you brought him back? It's like, okay, that is a legit concern. I liked that everybody other than Aquaman was gung-ho for bringing back Superman. But the best part was, before they even talked about it, when they were talking about how the change engine could take a burnt house and take the smoke and turn it back to a house, then they all got quiet. And then suddenly you hear the Man of Steel theme music rise up. And I want to mention that because I said this in my spoiler talk, and it's worth bringing up. I don't hate Danny Elfman. I think his musical score is good, and he does great music for other movies. But to take this film and give it back its original score was magic. It changed the tone of every scene. I thought it was cheesy when Wonder Woman returned and she whipped that guy with the yellow lasso and brought him up and says, the lasso of Hasty compels you to tell the truth. And I don't know, something about the music in that scene, it just didn't work. But as soon as you put the original score back, the entire scene felt different. So when they start discussing bringing Superman back, and doo-doo starts rising up, it's like the chills. And that was something we never got in the theatrical cut.
Well, yeah, because in the theatrical cut, and again, I like Danny Elfman. I have my opinions about him for sure, but his score for the Justice League was, like I said in my review, it was just the difference between writers that were writing music for the movie and the emotions of the movie, and then you had Danny Elfman came in and he's playing the hits, he's playing the ballads, for the movie, which is okay in its own right, but not for this universe that it's supposed to portray. So the what we got, the Junkie XL score, with the hints of Hans Zimmer, was just amazing. Absolutely.
And it's amazing, right, what music can do to a film.
Yeah.
To everybody's point, hearing the original, I call it Lego Batman music, but it's not Lego Batman. It's the original Batman music. And hearing that come in and the original John Williams score in the original release, it was nice. I remember smiling when I heard it, but it didn't fit. And then when you mentioned the new score and the themes coming into this film, everything felt right and everything felt familiar and all connected to Man of Steel and BVS. It just felt right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the music is a character itself.
I want to acknowledge this here because, Justin's saying it made zero sense. So, there are a lot of different feelings about this film. And I just want to acknowledge, that's fine. We're nerding out. And if you don't like it, that's cool. You don't have to be negative because this could lead to such an amazing conversation. So, I mean, I guess, Justin, I can sort of see it. But for me, it did make a lot of sense. I loved it being divided into chapters. I loved how they picked up where BVS left off and they carried on these storylines and the themes. And I love the new music and stuff. So for me, just I will get where you're coming from, and it's art. So sometimes it speaks to you and sometimes it don't. And that's okay. And I'm glad you're here and part of this conversation. So, I mean, thank you for, coming to a nerd session and being bold enough to say what your real opinion is. So I just want to say I do appreciate that, man. And I hope you stick around for this whole talk and just continue with your 2 cents, because I'd love to continue having this conversation with you. But with Superman's resurrection, I loved the fight with the Justice League. And it was the one scene I truly did like in the theatrical version. But this version was infinitely cooler to me for a number of reasons. First off, how cool was it when Batman showed up and Superman begins his beeline to Batman? Yeah. And then the Justice League start to get in front of him to try to block it. And one at a time, he just blows right through them like, I don't know, a paper bag in the wind. I mean, what did you guys think of that?
I love how Batman was prepared, and they go into the gauntlets, like how they disperse energy. And I just love that how Batman was ready just in case something were to happen with that exchange. And then we didn't get the "do you bleed?" or "you don't let me live" or "you don't let me die," all that silliness. I was so happy that wasn't in the film. And I just love how you just was silent. He gave him the heat vision, but Batman was prepared with the gauntlets to retract the energy. And then Lois shows up, but she doesn't just show up randomly. It's already, discussed that she's there just mourning him and visiting him daily. So it all makes sense. Everything makes sense.
Yes, the whole Lois Lane thing made so much more sense in the Snyder Cut to me.
That she was just there and like she's there every morning. Yeah, every morning, and as I said, she's there organically rather than let me put my Lois symbol in the sky and here she comes. That was a very forced thing. So.
But that scene, there was also, in my opinion, there was more tension. The tone, maybe the music has something to do with it, but there was more tension, and Superman was destroying a whole lot more things. I don't think we got in the theatrical cut him using heat vision on military vehicles. We didn't get any of that. So I'm like, oh, this can go longer than what I thought. So I love that, the extension of that scene.
And that was heart-wrenching, because go back to Man of Steel, the Smallville fight, where he's saving the military. Right. Where he's fighting Zod and Zod's people, and then he's jumping in the way to save the military. And now here he is confused and he's lost and he's shooting heat vision at them. I mean, you kind of got to wonder, and they didn't really address this in the movie. I wouldn't consider that a weakness because this movie had a lot going on. Mm-hmm. But can you imagine what's going on through his head when his mind is right? And he's like, I shot heat vision at the military. Yeah. And I remember my wife and I were watching that scene and we both went, no, Superman, no. Like you said, though, that added to that tension. It took everything because it's truth, justice, the American way. It's all the stuff that he stands for. Now he's shooting fire at it. Dude, you want him to come back.
Yeah, it reminded me just the way he took out those tanks reminded me of that same look he had in his eyes in the BVS Nightmare sequence when he was killing the prisoners on each side of Batman as he's walking up to him. It reminded me of that a lot.
Yeah.
But
Speaking of,
those tanks are in, like that shot is in the Justice League, but it's edited out, zoomed in on the panels that need to be. So those tanks were edited out of that movie completely.
dang. And one of the things I loved, and I don't know if you noticed this, but when he was going a beeline to Batman and knocking out each Justice League member, the music in the background was the, the whole Zod music. And I was just like, oh, I turned to Laura and I went, Laura, it's Zod music. She goes, no, it's evil Kryptonian music. And I was like, oh, I married such a nerd. I love this so much. Now, did you guys notice this? So he goes back to the farm. And I love that we went inside the house this time and had that great conversation with Lois and Clark. And what I love about that conversation is, I don't know if you saw this, but you could see he's getting better when he's at the house. He's getting better the moment he sees Lois. Mm-hmm. But what's even cooler about it is once he's in the house and he says, my mother loved it here. And then he pauses and he goes, yeah, I loved it here. I feel like that's the moment his mind was unbroke. The movie actually gave us a point where we go, oh, that's it. He's back. Just the way that he said that. I mean, what did you guys think about the farmhouse scene in this version versus the other version?
Well, the first thing I have to say is the very noticeable, you smell good is gone. Now, Seth and I dissected this last night when we watched it. And now we realize that they actually didn't even reshoot that. They just dubbed over it. Like they dubbed over "You Smell Good" because it's the same.
Really? I thought I heard it again, but maybe it's,
no. She says "You spoke" when he says something.
Did
she
I
says,
not before? Right?
Did I not before? Yeah, but no, she didn't say you smell good. She goes "You spoke." Yeah, it was a moment like we realized not only did she say something different, but it's the same exact shot. So they actually just dubbed words over that.
I've seen it 4 times and I missed that. How did I miss that? Good catch.
Same here. So I'm watching it again when we're done, and I'm gonna be listening for that because that's really cool. Wow. Yeah. So
I love the throwback of that scene because there's many things I love about this film, but what I love is that every scene and every character is allowed to breathe and just take a couple minutes just to establish some exposition or backstory. And that scene that you just mentioned, when he says, I loved it here, and the camera zooms back, and then we get the shot of the swing that was from Man of Steel. That's a little callback.
That was great, yes.
And I go, this makes so much sense, and it's so perfect. So, yes, I love that entire scene. And then when Martha shows up, it's even more emotional.
See,
I just thought the whole thing was unwatchable, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, you did something here that is actually really cool because I think a lot of people are intimidated by a 4-hour runtime, yet Zack Snyder used every minute of it, so it didn't feel like 4 hours. But what's great is now you can look at the theatrical cut and go, there's no room to breathe. There is no motivation, character development, character arcs, because they just had to get through it. 4 hours gave us room. And when we talk about Cyborg, we're not there yet. But when we do, I mean, the 4 hours gave us time to get to know that character. It gave us more time with the Flash and made him infinitely more powerful. Like you said, Rudy, the presence of Superman is felt beginning to end, even though he doesn't come in until the last, 2 hours or hour and a half or something. It's not long, but his presence is felt. And that was the beauty to me. Like, see, I love Lord of the Rings. So sitting through a 4-hour movie is nothing to me. If it's a good movie and engaging, I don't care. Give me a 4-hour Avengers. Give me a 4-hour Justice League. I'm a superhero nerd. I will sit through 4 to 5 hours of that. And the fact that we finally got it and Zack Snyder used that time well, these characters got to breathe. So I got to tell you, though, my favorite part of Superman coming back is him walking through the ship and you hear Jor-El's voice and Jonathan Kent's voice. And what's cool is first it's flashbacks. So you're hearing stuff from the first movie and Jor-El or Jonathan will say, you'll have to find out why you're here. And then you hear Jor-El's voice explain why he's here. And it's like giving the answers to the questions. Right. But then it goes from flashbacks to their spirits are directly speaking to him now. And my favorite line is when Jor-El says, your heart has been tested and you have given them hope. And then I love how he gets a new mandate. And I think it answers something that a lot of people didn't like about Man of Steel and BVS, thinking Superman is too dark, because this is really part of Superman's journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Superman's journey is learning to be Superman. And Man of Steel, he's choosing this world. In BVS, this world has turned against him. He hasn't hit that spot yet. And now it's being spoken into him. We have loved you. Love the world as you have been loved.
And I love when his dad says, "Now fly, son, fly." And I'm like, oh, it reminded me, believe it or not, I got flashbacks from Smallville, because the Smallville finale, I don't know if everybody's seen the last episode of Smallville. When
They haven't, but they don't care, so keep going.
Okay, but I love it. It's very similar because you have Jor-El and Jonathan Kent, who's played by, I forget his name, but he was on the Dukes of Hazzard.
Yes,
but he's one of my favorite. Yeah, he's one of my favorite. John Snyder. Yeah, he's one of my favorite Jonathan Kents, and I just love it's the same thing. That dialogue of like, this is what you're born to do. Now go do it, son. So I love that moment. I actually got teary-eyed when I saw that moment.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. One of my favorite aspects of that that scene, or that moment in particular, is something that I've always loved about this series, and it's the fact that Jonathan Kent and Jor-El are equal. You know, when if you go back into like the Reeves, you know, the Christopher Reeve, you know, Superman, all that stuff, as soon as he finds Jor-El, you don't really hear about Jonathan Kent anymore. You know, he's just kind of off to the side a little bit, and it's all Jor-El and Kryptonian. But in this world, Jor-El and Jonathan Kent are on the same level. They are his dad as one. You know, and I think that's a very important aspect to have. You know, it shows the unity between his human side and his Kryptonian side. And I think that's a great detail they have in there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
So subscribe to Hot Takes for Nerds. It's a great channel. But he says, I know you'll disagree, but I would have loved that scene without the dialogue from Jor-El and Jonathan. Maybe a couple of lines in the end, but not a ton of it. I will say something beautiful about that scene is you don't entirely need it, but it adds so much to have it.
Right.
I remember thinking it went a little long, like the back and forth, you know, between
I didn't even think that. I thought it was beautiful because it was the questions raised in Man of Steel by Jonathan Kent answered. And it's what we've been waiting. So, like, I get what you're saying, Steve, but for me, it's what I've been waiting for. And it was
it's like the bookend of the Man of Steel story arc is really what it is. It's coming to a close. He's finally discovering who he is. Like every story, who am I? He's discovering who he is. He's finally accepted his journey and he's on his way. So to me, it was poignant because we'll never get a Man of Steel 2. But this is the closest thing we'll get. And I just love how his character has come to the end of his journey.
Yes, I totally. And then one of my favorite scenes, and we'll probably get more into this final battle when we talk about Steppenwolf. Who else loved the appearance of Superman at the end? That was amazing, where he's about to come down with that axe on freaking Cyborg, and suddenly Superman is standing there, hits his shoulder. I'm not impressed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's way better than I believe in truth, and I also believe in justice.
Yeah, but that whole sequence, he was just brutal because then he uses a super breath and freezes the axe and punches it and just goes off on Steppenwolf, which, believe it or not, I had a lot of sympathy for. He had like a cynical type of like role for me where he was in this debt and he wanted just to go back home. So I kind of had pity for him here and there. But that, again, going back to Superman, that was probably one of the best superhero scenes I've seen in comic book. It was not the best ever, but it's one of the best. It's right up there. How everyone just kind of goes in, they have their way, and then we know what happens as he goes through the spoilers, right? Wonder Woman cuts off his head and just lands right in front of Darkseid. That was so epic. That was everything I've always wanted.
Now, I've chosen C's comment here because C is saying, I converted into a Snyder fan. So let me clear something up. I was always a Snyder fan. I had issues with Batman versus Superman, and it took getting the whole picture to go, I see where you were going. So you're half right, C. I am a half convert. I was kind of already there, but I'm more on board now than I was.
I think Durbin's become a Jesse Eisenberg Lex Luthor fan through all this, because you hated him before.
I did. I don't hate him now.
Maybe not a fan, but you've grown to your distaste for him is not as strong as it used to be.
Exactly. Steppenwolf does look absolutely awesome. Please stick around because we are going to get to Steppenwolf in more detail and pick up on what Rudy was talking about with Steppenwolf in just a little bit. So I don't know what else we got here to talk about with Superman. So does anybody else have anything epic they want to say about Superman before we move on to our next awesome thing?
I'm good.
Yep, I think we covered that one.
Frickin' Batfleck. Where do you begin with how awesome Bruce Wayne was in this story? It truly, instead of just him being goofy in the theatrical cut, taking the note to the extreme, oh, he was just too dark, and then we got to make him funny and tell jokes. I don't know. Rudy, kick us off. Batman's character arc in this film from BVS, go.
It was so refreshing. I said this in my review. I actually yelled it. It was so refreshing to see Batman be Batman. He acted like Batman. He behaved like Batman during battles, and he was prepared. He had all the gadgets, and he was, again, like at the heart of the team as well. And I love how we've seen a side of Batman that we hadn't seen before. Again, we've got the darker, Dark Knight in the BVS, but here there's a line where they're all loading up on the plane, and Alfred's like, how do you know who show up? And he goes, faith, Alfred. You got to have faith. And I'm like, wow, that's a different type of Batman that we see. He's accepted other people in his life to help him with it, make a team. So I loved it. It was a better representation of Batman. At no point did I cringe. No silly one-liners. Do you talk to fish? Nothing like that. It was just Batman.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Well, Seth, you want to tell them what you talk to
Seth. Do it.
The line, the you talk to fish line, that is a Zack Snyder thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering why they didn't leave that in, but
yeah, we went back and found it in the original trailer, before it. A part of me feels like I don't know if he did or not. Probably not, but a part of me feels like Zack Snyder saw Justice League and purposely left out little things like that. But
maybe
I have no idea. But when it comes to Batfleck, the one thing I noticed is, like as you said, this is Batman. This is a good continuation of what happened in BVS. But I also didn't feel like Ben Affleck was like, oh crap, we're ruining this movie by reshoots. Like that's what I felt in Justice League. Every time I saw a reshot, I've seen reshot, like it just looked like he was just not in it. He's just there. Okay, I'll do what I'm here to do. There was more heart in his performance, I believe.
Yes. Yeah. Well, one of the things I loved about Batman, and I think Sean here brought it up perfectly. I loved how he said to Alfred that he, for once, wasn't acting on reason, but on faith.
Yeah.
Right.
And, I find that interesting, and I'm going to touch on this more because I'm going to work on a theological analysis about this. But in my Batman v Superman theological analysis, I kind of talked about how Batman is just ticked. I mean, he's bitter. He's angry at God. Here's this next powerful being, and he's angry at this powerful being. His anger is coming out at him. And we see a converted Batman in this movie. And one of the incredible things now looking back at BVS from this perspective is Batman is that representative of humanity. What do you do with somebody like Superman, especially when somebody like Luthor is framing Superman for all these evil things? So Batman is this representative of humanity.
Right.
And as soon as Superman's name was cleared, and he saw the truth that he himself was even taken in, and he had become the very villain he was fighting against. He felt powerless when his parents were murdered. He felt powerless when Robin was murdered. And now another Martha is in trouble, and he's made somebody else powerless to save her.
Right.
And this is Batman's redemption. So he's still dark. He still has that edge. But we really see he's converted. And now he's walking by faith. When he gets Superman back, he will not take no for an answer. We will bring this guy. Did you guys notice that? This scene where they're in the ship and Aquaman's like, this is a bad idea. And Batman barks back, we're doing it.
Yeah.
And, they're like, do we still want it? He goes, push through. We're getting this done. Like,
yeah.
It's not like he's trying to be a jerk, but there is a new fervor in him. This will be done. I mean, I love that whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And I love how, I think we touched on it earlier, but at the end of BVS, he was like, I failed him in life. I won't fail him in death. And right at the get-go, he's talking to Alfred at the very beginning. He goes like, I made a promise at his grave. And that motivation from BVS is carried out, as you just said, in this film. And he's motivated, and I just love it. It's a true, better representation of Batman.
Yeah. I think, I might have answered this. What are your quick thoughts on BVS now post viewing Justice League? Do we want to go around for like just 20 seconds. What are our thoughts on BVS now that we have seen Justice League?
Go ahead, son.
Well, mine relatively the same, mostly just because I've always loved Batman v Superman. I do think, though, that it will win some more people over if they watch Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah.
And I've even seen that happen already a couple times. You know, some people who didn't love Batman v Superman are now like, hey, you know, things are starting to make sense, you know, with this whole storyline, and maybe it's not as bad as they previously thought it was.
Yeah, when it comes to BVS for me, this movie just solidifies my love for that movie. It you know, I'm not even going to pit them against each other, which one I like better over the other, but you know, to me, it's just a continuation of BVS. And BVS is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Right.
And to see that continue, I guess in a way, it just makes me love BVS even more, you know?
Mm-hmm. And I've always loved BVS. So what I said in my review is that now that the Justice League, his version came out, I think it'll do one of two things. One, you'll look back at Man of Steel and BVS and say, you know what, I still don't like what Snyder was doing. Or after seeing Justice League, you'll go back and revisit those two and you'll see what Zack was trying to do. He was going for a grand scale of storytelling, not like a comic book storytelling kind of mode. He was going for the mythological type of framework. Because he's looking at these characters not as superheroes, but he's looking at them as like gods. Like he goes back and there's so much respect when it comes to the Greek gods like Zeus and Ares, and he goes into great detail with this story, and he's treating them like the new gods. So he's going with that type of approach. And I remember telling my girlfriend while watching this, the second time I'm getting Cecil B. DeMille vibes. I'm not comparing this film to classic the Ten Commandments film, but the scale of storytelling, that broad, you know, story from like it goes back ages ago and now it's coming back full circle. That grand storytelling framework is what I felt while watching this, and I think a lot of people aren't prepared or weren't prepared when they went in to see that or now. But in later, as the years go by, I think people will appreciate that what Zack was trying to do with the comic book and with these characters.
I think that's a very good point, Rudy. That's a very good comparison. And to kind of piggyback on that, when I first saw BVS, I was telling Seth, and I've told everybody on Film Trigger, that it reminded me of what people must have felt like when they went and saw Wizard of Oz the first time.
Right? Yeah.
I was like, there's this magic that when I saw that movie, I'm like, this is cinema. This is what movies are about. And, you know, like just the comparison you made, you know, he did what, the 10 Commandments, and that's such same exact thing. Just a grand story. It's just what cinema is supposed to be. You know, now a lot of cinema now is just like, it's become watered down and, you know, and,
it's made for the masses, like, so people can bring their kids and they can go have fun for 2 hours and laugh. So that's like the framework for Marvel movies. I'm not saying Marvel movies are bad, but it's made for a broader audience.
Well, it's know your audience. If there's anything I learned, I spent 14 years working in radio. And one of the biggest thing I learned is if you go for your target audience, that's the bullseye. It looks small and it might look like you want to get the general, but what you want to hit is the bullseye. You want your target.
That makes sense.
You hit your target, you'll be surprised at the spread you get, but you need to hit the target. And I think that's what was missed with the theatrical cut. They wanted Marvel. And I'm not saying Marvel's broad. Marvel knows their audience and they're hitting the target. Yeah. That's why they're getting the spread. They know what their audience wants and they're hitting it good. So nothing but compliments to Marvel. But you could see Snyder, he knew his audience and he was trying to hit that. And that's the problem with the theatrical cut. They didn't hit that.
And, you know, I'll say this. Well, I love drawing. I love art and details. I love details in cinema. And one sequence that I loved, I think is one of my favorite sequences in this new film, is when Diana gets the arrow that was shot from her mother, and she looks at the arrow and there's writing on there. I'm like, oh, okay. And I don't know, what does that mean? She goes down to the temple and there's a hidden like a door where you see the beveled place where you can put the arrow. And she goes into this room and sees this painting on the wall that shows like historically what happened when Darkseid initially attacked. And I remember pausing it, because I love the art. I love the historic, you know, accuracy of the artwork depicting, you know, a comic book event, but it looks like something you'd see at the Vatican. And I remember looking at my girlfriend, I go, this is a shame that an artist, a team of artists painted this beautiful mural in this scene to be used to just give us exposition, and to think it would have never been exposed to us, the fans, or the world if it wasn't for this movement.
Oh,
Think
man.
about that. That beautiful, that tapestry, it was beautiful and so detailed.
Yeah.
Well, that's the magic. That's one of the many magics of this movie is what it's done to appreciate not just the artist of of Zack Snyder, not just him, but all the other people that worked on this movie. You know, the Ray Porter who played Darkseid. You know, like you said, the artist who painted these murals on the wall. You know, Junkie XL who did the original score. You know, it's an appreciation for what the artists do, what they've done, and allowing them to show their real work, what they wanted to put out there to begin with. It's a justice. I mean, I'm not being, punny saying that word, but it's a justice that's been done. So,
yeah. Because we need to transition into Wonder Woman, and that's a great transition. But I do want to ask, how awesome were Batman's gauntlets, and how much did that help explain some things like Kryptonian tech in his gauntlets? What did you guys think of that? Like cool little things like that between Alfred, Batman, and the little technologies. It was awesome.
It made sense because it's Batman. He's going to be prepared for any situation. And that technology to fight against, the what are the little demons called? I forget.
Parademons.
Parademons. Yeah, he's preparing for that. So it only made sense, and I just kind of chuckled like, "Wow, that makes sense."
Yeah,
I didn't leave that out.
Well, and it was. I really enjoyed it because I remember people giving the trailer for this movie a lot of crap because they're like, "Oh, look at aliens shooting at Batman's gauntlets. How is that even?" How is that reflecting alien technology? And I'm like, well, actually, they just explained it to you. But also the relation between Alfred and Batman in this movie, just Alfred alone.
Yeah,
they've evolved. Like I always considered Alfred to be like the cool aunt, in BVS. He's the aunt he's like the aunt figure that will. Be hard on you, but also let you have a sip of her beer and shit like that. And stuff like that. Sorry, Durbin. But in this one, they I don't know, they had this married couple vibe, that I hadn't seen with them before,
right.
If I had a nickel every time, you said that, well, you'd be even more insufferable, like they've been together for 20 years. And like, I don't know, they had a much, I don't know, it was funnier balance between each other than before.
Yeah. Now, Lisa here in this comment, she is a part of the Wall of Weird podcast I do with Smallville, and lives in England. So she says Alfred doesn't like other people making tea. I get that, but it's such a British cliche. but like little moments like that made and I loved Alfred. He's so far my favorite interpretation of Alfred. It just made him that much more likable. And again, having that 4-hour breathing room and being able to take even these little things, it just endears you even more. So,
well, when it comes to that scene, that specific bit, I found it very pleasing because I didn't look at it, like it's a common thing with, British people or whatever. I don't know that aspect of it, but I looked at it as Alfred's not used to anybody doing things. Like he's the one that does things, I mean, she could have been doing anything in that bat cave and he'd just be like, well, don't forget to do this, don't just do it this way. Like that's what I felt like, he's like, I'm the one that always does this and you're kind of doing it wrong. So
yes.
One of my favorite lines is when everybody walks to the bat cave and Bruce introduces everybody. This is Alfred. I work for him. I thought that was funny. I was like, yeah, that's pretty funny.
That's like that married couple relationship I'm talking about,
Yep. I did love it when Bruce shows up and he's like, I brought friends. And Alfred's just kind of flabbergasted as all these people walk in and like, I don't know, just great little moments. I love like that. Hold on. I got caught reading this camera while I'm talking. Got caught reading this comment while I'm trying to talk. Reading and thinking don't go together. I thought Batman was so much better. I love that his motivation was to repair what he thought he broke in BVS. Well, recruiting the Justice League was to help repair what he broke. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Hot take for nerds. I totally subscribe to his channel. It's great.
Well, it's also I think it's one of the first times Batman realizes he can't do this alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But he's good in this movie. Again, it's about his character growth. Taking steps of faith. And so instead of trying to take all of this and do it himself in his way, he's really realized. I mean, go back to the end of this movie, right? The very end in that last battle, where is he? He's on top of that thing. He's taking out what he can. He takes out some parademons. He gets on a turret. But when they're inside and they're fighting Steppenwolf, he's up there watching and kind of just trying to do what he can to help Barry gather his electric charge. But otherwise, you know, he's like staying out of this. It's kind of like in BVS, same thing with Doomsday. But it's very cool to see Batman in this movie. Like, he's smart. He knows where to interact. He knew how to lead and bring this team together, and he knew his part in that team.
Yeah, he definitely knows his strengths, especially surrounded by gods.
Yes.
One thing I would like to just wrap up with Alfred, again, the exchange, there's a lot of exchanges. And again, I've seen it 4 times. And I love when that end of the Aquaman sequence where Alfred meets Bruce at the airport, and he goes, "What do you say?" He said, "No." He goes, "Well, perhaps a man who's been brooding in a cave for 20 years shouldn't be a recruiter." And I started laughing. That's so cool, little exchanges like that. So there's some humor, and I love the humor. There's more humor in this film than Man of Steel and BVS, but it matches the, I guess, the atmosphere and tone of that world. So it's poignant. I love it.
It actually does what I thought it should have done, because BVS and Man of Steel kind of darker, grittier. So if you wanted to go lighter with Justice League, you have to start dark and gritty and build to something lighter. And that's what this did with the chemistry of characters of light and fluffy, hilarious Barry, hopeful Wonder Woman, you know, gruff Aquaman, dark Batman trying to redeem himself, hopeful Superman rising from the dead. You take all of these things and you mesh it together correctly, you have a great tone with this movie. And I feel like Snyder knew exactly how to do that, and he did it.
Absolutely.
So let's dive into Wonder Woman, because we were talking about that here for a little bit. And along with Wonder Woman, we have to get into that epic Amazonian scene. But one of the cool things to me about Wonder Woman in this movie, if you go back to the theatrical cut, she's more timid. She's more, I don't really want to lead people to die. Like, you know, like, and it's good. Like, it's not a bad character arc. It's good. But this was better because we had warrior Wonder Woman from the beginning. This opened with the BVS Wonder Woman who got hit by Doomsday and gave that smirk and is like, oh, I'm ready for a good fight. That's the Wonder Woman this movie began with. Did you notice? She goes into that terrorist situation. She takes them out and their blood is splattered. Like she pops them in the head and they are dead. I mean, it was the warrior who showed up. What did you guys think of the warrior Wonder Woman character?
Well, I was impressed because, like you said, that's the one. I love the DC animated films, and I love that the depiction of Wonder Woman in those films. She's a warrior, and she's brutal, and I love that we got a little taste of that. And again, that sequence, I didn't notice the blood when I first saw it, but when she's throwing these guys against the wall, there's blood splatter. Right in the drive, I'm like, oh wow,
there was no mercy.
No, and then
she took him out.
Yeah, and then with the gauntlets at the end, where that one guy's like, I don't believe it, and she does her thing. I'm like, oh wow, she just killed him.
Yeah. I think he disintegrated and somehow his hat survived the disintegration.
Yeah.
Sean makes a good point. Wonder Woman's theme in this JL is awesome. Again, back to the point that the musical score changes everything. The Danny Elfman score kind of made it light, fluffy, cool little action sequence that's happening. The original score put back underscores the heaviness of this, but also it took Wonder Woman's theme and it added something new to it, building up to the original theme.
Right. It was like a vocal, like something reminded me of Gladiator. I don't know how to describe.
Yeah, Gladiator. A little bit of it in Owls of Ga'Hoole when it would go into that slow motion shot. Like, it was awesome. Go ahead.
Yeah, it really played into the Amazonian part of her. You know, like the warrior part of her that is very prevalent in this film. That's what I got. Like when you hear that vocal, acapella piece, it was. I don't know, there's something ancient about that sound, and that's what it reminds you. Oh yeah, this chick is 5,000 years old and a warrior, you know. Yeah. So I think it was a good element. Seth and I are a little iffy on how they used it sometimes because it's like every time she pops on screen, it's you know, it's like okay. You know, it was a little exhausting. As a matter of fact, there's one moment right at the final scene, final battle, where I thought it was actually her making that noise, jumping on the screen. I'm like, what in the world is Oh, that's okay. All right. That makes more sense.
Hey, Mercenary X84, real quick, could you explain this? I know who Donna Troy is. I don't know who you're referring to in the movie. So could you give me a little, because I would love to know. Seth, you look like you had a point of recognition. Who do you think he's talking about?
I know who he's referring to.
Okay, go.
It's the after the terrorists, after she takes them all out, she's like, everyone, you're safe, you're safe. I think he's referring to the little girl who won't get up at first.
Oh, yeah.
And then the woman kneels down to her. I don't know.
I want to be like you one day. She's like, you could be anybody, especially with that wishing stone.
Who's Donna Troy? I have to ask. Who's Donna Troy? I have no idea.
Donna Troy is like the Young Justice League, the new Wonder Woman in the Young Justice League. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I think. Correct me, Mercenary X84, if I got that wrong, but that's what I'm guessing.
See, I didn't know that either. That's why Seth is my guy in the chair.
Yeah. I just know that because I recently watched Titans on HBO Max. Couldn't finish that show because it lost me, but Donna Troy
we stopped mid season 2, right?
Yeah. But okay, so back to Wonder Woman here, and we talked about the music. One of the things that really impressed me, it wasn't great in the theatrical cut, but when you have the arrival of Steppenwolf, and okay, hold on, rewind. The opening of this movie, the death cry of Superman, go.
Oh, I got emotional. I got teary-eyed. I was just
gosh,
I was speechless that first 9 minutes. Like, this makes so much sense.
Yes.
This is beautiful. Oh my God. This was my face the entire time. That was me.
It was a very Zack Snyder thing to do, just like he did in BVS when you got, the ending battle of Man of Steel and a different perspective of that. That's exactly what he did here. It's a beautiful way to create that connective tissue between your movies. It's like, okay, we just watched BVS, and like as soon as you see that ending, you're like, you're almost refreshed at what happened previously, and now he's moving you forward with a greater story.
Right.
But yeah, it's that scene. It's just so emotional. It's beautiful, and like for the 9 minutes that it was playing, I would randomly look at Seth, and I was just like, hope is like your car keys, and I was just like,
no.
I cannot. I will never watch that scene. Doesn't that kid ask him, "Have you helped a hippo or something?"
Yes, or have you fought a hippo?
Oh God,
a dangerous animal.
It hurts.
Who thought that was a better idea? I don't know.
That's what I'm wondering.
That's not what this video is about.
And I love, again, the opening. It immediately sets the tone of this film. Like, what do I expect? What is Zack Snyder cooking to be like? And then it sets the tone. And his death, you just go and it connects all the other worlds. Aquaman's world, Wonder Woman's world. Yes. It introduces Cyborg. It connects everything. I'm like, this makes so much sense. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about that sequence and how it connects the story.
And also, just to add to that, like, it connects all these different worlds, but especially the Atlanteans. Like, they were just like randomly in that movie in Justice League. They're built up. Things make sense. Aquaman's not just randomly showing up going, "Hey, I know I've been gone for a long time, but what's that box over there?" There's a story that's told. It makes sense why he's there. And like,
it's actually a nice build up to his solo film, wouldn't you think? Or don't you think?
Yeah. And that's one of Seth's favorite movies.
Movies? I don't know about that one.
Well, in DC.
Yeah, in DC, sure. But and I will say this. You mentioned how the opening scene alone sets the tone for the rest of the movie. That's exactly how I felt as well, because we've known for years now that this is a completely different movie. But still, opening scene, that's when I truly realized, like, wow, this really is going to be like a different movie entirely. Like, just from the opening scene alone, you can tell
it's
this
so
is
haunting.
Completely different.
It is haunting. It's incredible.
And coming from my perspective, like back in the early 90s, the Death of Superman comic book strip, that storyline, I was in high school when that came out, and that impacted me to this day.
Same.
And just to see that sequence, just treat it the way if I were to make a movie, that's exactly how I would want it to look. It just gave me goosebumps. I had nostalgia, high school me reading the Death of Superman, goosebumps, but also modern day goosebumps, seeing what they did with the BVS and connecting it to this story. So I think I've seen that opening sequence more than the film. I just watch it just to kind of get that feel. It's so beautifully done.
Yeah. Well, what triggered me to get into that is the box on Themyscira calling out and the arrival of Steppenwolf, which we'll get into Steppenwolf later, but yeah, he's so much more epic here. But what's amazing is you think it's a fun action scene in the theatrical cut. This time it has emotion, and it has emotion because what you actually get is the sacrifice of the Amazonians, because they have to hold back Steppenwolf. Then they have to get the box out of that place. And then you feel the weight of the queen making the choice to kill her women by saying, seal him in. But it's not just locking the doors where, you know, Steppenwolf could do that little X with his axe and break through. No. The cliff collapses to bury the Amazonians and Steppenwolf in the water. And then Steppenwolf and the parademons come out. Her people are dead, and that scene. Let's go.
I think, that scene made so much more sense and had so much more impact. And also, just to kind of piggyback on what we were talking about previously, it's so much better explained why the mother box is, calling out, oh, well, now that the protector is gone, the boxes aren't in fear or whatever, now they're like, okay, well, we can let them know where we are, which is when Steppenwolf shows up. But yeah, that scene entirely, and he's tossing these women left and right. He threw a horse, man.
He threw a horse.
Multiple horses.
Horse eye. It was brutal. It was what a person with that type of passion and that type of something to prove would do. That he's just not there just to be a bad guy and and make bad guy sounds. It's there's a reason. Like, there's a passion behind what Steppenwolf does, which we learned throughout the movie. But this movie is like almost like it's an act of desperation with him. And I think that first scene is, or that Amazonian scene really showcases that.
If I can piggyback off that, I'm gonna say piggyback like 4 more times. I have a checklist. I'm not allowed to say more than 5 times.
I've been saying it.
What I loved about the difference between this film and the Joss Whedon was how powerful and threatening and strong the Amazon women were in that scene. They actually were putting up a decent fight with Steppenwolf. There's one scene that maybe I didn't see in the theatrical cut, but there's like all these Amazonian women on top of them just trying to pull them down and beat them up. Like, oh, that is amazing. I didn't see that in the theatrical cut. And then as the fight extends on the field, they're putting up a decent fight. They're shooting him with arrows. They're tying him down, and he's actually not as invulnerable as I thought he was. Like, he was just kind of stomping through them before, and now they're actually putting up a strong fight. And I love that chant where they go, "Show me your fear. We have no fear." I'm like,
chills.
It's
chills when they
I got like 300 chills, but it's really, I'm like, this is, I can't curse. Bad arse. This is awesome. This is awesome.
Stevie.
Yeah, where was this before, and who took it out? And they need to get arrested, something, or fired. My God, sorry, it's amazing.
Yes, but why would they? Exactly. Things like that are the things that give you the chills in those moments. When you cut those little things, you lose. It's the little things. God, the devil's in the details.
Yes.
I believe people did get fired over that movie.
They must have, man. Oh my gosh.
When I first saw it, I actually told a friend of mine to pause it. I was actually a little angry because it was so good. I was so overwhelmed, and I was so amazed at how everything made sense. I kept saying, why did he leave that out? Who cut that out? This makes sense. This makes sense. I kept saying that, and I told him to pause it. And I'm like, I'm angry that Warner Brothers, Zack made us this beautiful film that explains everything, connects all the story narratives that we've been picking apart and just calling them out on YouTube forever. We have a beautiful film that the fans want, and Warner Brothers, whoever executive saw this, said, no, take 80% of it out. We wanted like the Avengers, and bring somebody in who directed Age of Ultron and make it funny. Take out the Amazonian power sequence, and going back to Wonder Woman. Remember the scene where they're fighting in the, I guess the under the ground tunnels?
Yes.
And there's a scene where like Steppenwolf tells the parademons, "Back off, she's mine." She goes, "I belong to no one." I'm like, Where was that scene?
Yes.
Instead, we got her laying on the ground.
Well,
and
it's
Barry
because
falling on
in
top of
that
her.
movie, she had to be more like, I don't want to risk people's lives. This movie is the warrior. And this idiot said something stupid to the warrior. And the warrior says, I belong to no one.
I was
You
like,
are
goosebumps.
mine.
I was like, ooh, this is Wonder Woman.
Yes. Gosh, that was such an amazing scene.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, I feel like it's going to come out someday. I feel like there is something that hasn't come to light yet with that whole Snyder situation. There's a piece of that puzzle that's missing, and I don't know. I don't know what it is. I mean, just the fact that they would take this movie and shelve it, spend more money to remake the crap that we got. I don't know.
You make less money on that crap.
I feel like there's a piece that's going to come out someday. It's going to be shocking. That's my personal opinion.
Probably in a decade, we'll get that when legal stuff is no longer an issue. But until legal stuff is no longer an issue, we will probably never get that side.
Well, this is also coming from the man that told me it was going to be maybe a decade before we saw.
Well, come on. Well, I have precedent for that with the Richard Donner cut. Okay, that didn't come out of the blue.
I was watching the film with a friend yesterday, and he made a good point because I've always heard rumors. Again, I don't know if they're true or not. That like this comment you just highlighted here that the movie was sabotaged.
Yeah.
I heard rumors that Jeff Johns or whomever were selling story elements or copying story elements and bringing them over to Infinity War and Endgame. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't believe that. But then I was watching this movie with my buddy, and they show the Golden Age of Gods battle sequence where Ares goes with an axe and hits Darkseid here. And he goes, hey, that's exactly like what happened in Infinity War. I'm like, oh, yeah. That's kind of like what Thor did with Thanos. And
in my review, I said he should have gone for the head.
Yes. And I'm like, maybe they did take elements. I'm not saying they did, but you see the similarities. What was
that was something that I pointed out to Seth a while ago when we saw Endgame, and knowing I'd already seen the storyboards to, Steppenwolf's head, being chopped off at this point. And I was like, right there, that's where that came from. I said that's one of those moments that was leaked into Marvel. I don't know. I don't want to speculate. That's not what this video is about. No. But there's something. There's something that's going to come out someday. And mark my words on that.
So, Hot Takes for Nerds brings up something else that is really cool that you guys have already touched on. The flashback where Diana was explaining the story of Darkseid was my favorite part of the film. It was epic. I love the theme behind it, and it made the scene from WB's cut such a weak moment. Now, from WB's cut, what's so sad is instead of Darkseid, it's Steppenwolf in that flashback. So it makes things confusing. Like, wait, who's the real villain here? He says for Darkseid once in the theatrical cut. So is Darkseid the real villain? But it seems like this is all for Steppenwolf's glory. And then he's driven mad by his own defeat, like his first ever defeat. I didn't see him get defeated in that war. At what point was he actually defeated? So there's like all these weird questions. But now you do it right. You throw Darkseid in there, and that's where I meant by he should have gone for the head. When I think it's Ares who takes the axe and hits him in the shoulder, and I'm like, you should have gone for the head. This whole thing would be over, but then we wouldn't have this movie. But like, you could see that moment of defeat, and I love it that it's the only time ever Darkseid was defeated. How much more weight does it add to things? This is the first time ever Darkseid was defeated. Mind-bogglingly awesome. I mean, about that scene, what do you guys think?
I got Return of the King chills while watching that. And it wasn't like, they're copying Return of the King. It's like, it was well earned, like the exposition, the storyline. And even before that scene, we have Aquaman visiting like that throne room where there's that statue of like the former King Neptune, I guess. And you kind of get hints of the history before the history is explained. So it's well deserved when it starts to happen. And then a junkie score, as that scene's playing, it just adds to it, man. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it out loud, but I love it because it gives, it gives the story room to breathe, but it finally explains, as you said, what the mother boxes are, the trinity that, that controls it, and then Darkseid's presence and all that. It all just takes...
Well, it gave the mother box character. So it mentioned that they're technology. So they're a science beyond what we can understand. At the same time, and you see this at the end when Cyborg goes inside and the
Yes.
mother boxes turn into those creepy witches and they're like touching his
Yes.
face or whatever. But right there in that
Oh.
beginning, it gave the box's character, especially where Wonder Woman said when they lost and the bad guys left, the boxes became like dogs without an owner. So they just withered and went to sleep until the right moment, which happened to be when Earth's greatest protector died. And perhaps we had Green Lantern of Sector 2814 before the death of Superman, and maybe that's why they never called out before. But that's speculation. The point is what we got. They did it brilliantly. And I liked the idea because one of the things it did, so you remember the theatrical cut where they're fighting under the water in that tunnel and he throws the missile and the water comes pouring in. He goes, "You're wasting my time. Mother is calling." And he takes off. So I'm glad that line was not in this. But the mother boxes were calling him this time. So he goes and we actually get the message where the mother boxes, being characters now, reveal to Steppenwolf the anti-life equation is on this planet. This is the lost planet. That was an incredible revelation.
Right.
That if you want to have that stupid "mother is calling" line, you got to actually have mother calling. You got to actually have a purpose. This took out the line and actually had mother calling, and there was a real freaking purpose.
Yeah, Steppenwolf definitely had some Freudian level issues in Justice League, with that whole mother thing. Like it was awkward. It was weird.
It made no sense.
But in this film, like you said, Durbin, it characterized the mother boxes, and that even plays at the end with Cyborg, when he, kind of gets sucked into the mother box world for a moment, and they're almost like clinging on to him. Again, like dogs without a master. Like they're desperate for him, to cling on to. It gives them more character. It builds onto that. These things are more than we realize what they are. They're just not just random boxes for some reason. So
now this is interesting. Did you guys notice this? One thing I noticed from Steppenwolf was his suit was lighting up the same colors as the box. I thought it was a color correction error, but I noticed the colors lighting up on the box are the same. I'm going to watch it again after we're done, and I'm going to look for that specifically now.
They had a very gunmetal sort of vibe. The boxes and Steppenwolf. I did notice that.
Yes.
If I can go into the second mother box when he discovers it at Atlantis, I do love the scene before, and it's just 2 minutes where you see the parademons pulling some Atlanteans out of the water.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Now he knows where to go.
Yes.
He's interrogating Atlanteans. He's just not randomly showing up. Like, why did they take that out?
Yes. So, like, go back to the theatrical cut now. If he could randomly show up on Themyscira or, Atlantis, why couldn't he just randomly show up and take the one from Man? Why couldn't he just figure out where that is and show up? This gives you that explanation. He could find it by the scent. For some reason, the Themyscira one just kept calling out. Like, that was like the main one crying out. That's how he found it. The other one he found because he knew it belonged to the Atlanteans, but where? So let's torture some Atlanteans that have the scent on her of her on them, and let's go find it. Like, it made sense.
And
out
it was
of these
2
things.
minutes. They could have left it in the film.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh god, yeah.
Oh, it's so freaking irritating. Like the choices they made to cut. All right, so since we're still on Wonder Woman and we're talking about what a warrior she is, I don't care if we've already talked about this. What did I say?
No, I forgot we were on Wonder Woman. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did too. Well, this is all part of Wonder Woman because she told the whole flashback story, which gives anyway, point is, it makes sense in my head. But don't you love, okay, so how annoying in the theatrical cut. Steppenwolf is defeated because now he's afraid. Oh, my. And the parademons are like, oh, he's afraid. Let's go eat him now. And it's like, what?
That goes into that classic movie thing, like where like Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man series with Tobey Maguire, where the bad guys aren't killed by Spider-Man, they find ways to kill themselves. Right. It goes back into, it doesn't taint our heroes at all by having, the antagonist get destroyed by his own efforts or something like this. That's what that was. That was a desperate attempt at that.
The Steppenwolf in the theatrical version is not Steppenwolf. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
But what I'm building towards now is the actual death of Steppenwolf. I
Oh,
loved Aquaman coming up behind him and spearing him with the trident and lifting him up. Superman flying in and uppercutting that loser. And then as he's flying towards that portal, Wonder Woman in the Zack Snyder slow motion, no thought about it, lopping off his head and sending his head through the portal. And Darkseid, like, I didn't like this guy anyway, and just squashing it down under his foot.
So who is Steppenwolf to Darkseid?
his uncle.
Yeah, his uncle.
Yeah, okay. I remember you telling me something last night about it. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, that scene, it just reminded me of the animes when I saw that. And again, that's the tone that I want in a DC film. I just, that I don't want to say violence, but just that type of tone.
Yeah.
In that sequence. That's what I was hoping to see in the original, but that's not what we got. But to your point, that whole sequence, and I don't know if we want to touch on the Flash time travel thing right before
We're
that.
actually going to get there real soon.
Okay,
next, I want to do Cyborg and Flash together.
Okay.
But yeah, continue though.
No. That's what I was going to lead to. But
okay.
It's like it was perfect. Yeah, I just like it. But
then let's talk about Flash and Cyborg together and how freaking awesome it was that we actually got their characters developed. So go on, Rudy, with what you were going to say, because I want to hear it.
Well, I'll start with Cyborg. What I loved, he was probably my favorite character that we were robbed from, because there's a lot of just exposition on the extent of his powers. I like how they visualize, you can do this, you can give people money. That whole sequence where you give a little piece of his character, like he wants to help. That one student, that one friend of his who had lost everything, but he helped her with her grades by hacking her grades and giving her like a better score. I love that. But then that scene with that single mother, that got me emotional. Like he had the single mother who was like only had $11, but she was evicted, and he goes and he does this whole thing where he gives her more money. It's little human.
But think about what's even better about that. What's even better about that scene is that's where you have the narration of Silas Stone.
Yes.
And he's going over how powerful Cyborg is. That everything on this earth that is digital will bend to his will without effort or fight. It takes him really and puts him on a Superman level. Like, this is an incredibly powerful character. And what does he do? He gives money to that waitress. What did you say, Steve?
Almost beyond Superman level.
It is
Superman in a way, like that. And I guess to kind of explain it that, but
he feels like he's Cyborg could possibly be one of the most powerful beings in the universe now. You know, just the way everything works, the way he can manipulate technology, and even become a part of the mother boxes. You know, for a moment. So
I have a list of like small moments, random moments within the film that were poignant and just added so much to the character that we can relate to. Because I think that's when every character is introduced in any movie, there's always a scene that, oh, I can relate to that as a dad or as a boyfriend or husband, whatever, right? And I love the scene where he's at the game and he scores a winning touchdown. He looks at the stands and he sees his mom, but the camera pans down and the seat next to the mom is empty. Like, oh, that's nice. And then they're in the car and the mom's explaining, you know, your dad was busy. And that whole one-on-one sequence with him and his mother is one of my favorites of the film, because it just adds so much, you know, depth and emotion to Cyborg. Now you know his relationship with his mom. You know why he hates or has that, you know, animosity towards his dad. It makes sense.
Yes.
And I feel bad for Ray Fisher that they took that away from him. And they took it away from Cyborg. It's frustrating.
They took it away from us. They took it away from everybody.
It's gone.
It was. Cyborg is the heart of this movie, and you know, just seeing like you just mentioned, Rudy. You know, just seeing the connection with his father and knowing that animosity was growing even before the change, that just added the level that we needed for that to make more sense. You know, it's not just, oh, you turned me into a monster, now I hate my dad.
Right.
No, dad was kind of not always there. You know, he wasn't the best dad. You know, but just to see that change throughout the film, like, you know, seeing him, you know, he doesn't want to see his dad die. He still cares for him, you know, and seeing these moments, that becomes more impactful. That becomes, okay, now we understand he might not even call him his dad. He always refers to him as, you know, the researcher at Star Labs, you know, and all these things. But when it comes down to it, he still loves his dad, you know, and now we see that becomes more powerful when we realize what he's battling with internally, trying to, you know, holding all this animosity against his father. So that's I don't know why they would take that out.
I don't either. Well, because it's his character arc. I mean, each hero had a character arc, but part of Cyborg becoming the hero that he is forgiving his dad. And that rift that is between them being healed. It's one of the things that made his whole character so compelling, is because that was such a prevalent issue beginning to end the moment you meet him. And you really see the key to him accessing all that he can be is loving his father and honoring his father. And so he had to learn to do that. So that moment, and it was incredible with the resurrection of Superman. It was incredible. You know, when I saw the mother box fall in the parking lot, I went, oh no.
Right.
But when Silas grabbed it and he took it in and went, wait, is this is what I saw in the trailer. No, this is what I saw in the trailer. What are you doing, Silas? You can't destroy it with that laser beam. The fact that he died just so that it could hold the heat and thus they could have it could be marked. It could be tracked. And the heroes could track it. And he sacrificed himself on the possibility that it could be tracked. It showed he was a true hero. And to have Cyborg, to have Victor see that side of his father, that sacrificial side right there at the end, it was incredibly powerful. And it was another thing that took that whole sequence of the resurrection of Superman and made it amazing.
Yeah, and it really plays into Cyborg understanding that his father wasn't just trying to do a science experiment, that his father actually loved him and believed in him. You know, when it comes to him sacrificing himself, it all just really solidifies Cyborg's entire arc. You know, his character, justification for how he feels and why he is the way he is, and it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
And I love how, as we just already touched on, that has this animosity toward his dad. And then there's that one sequence when they're going toward the chamber, the Kryptonian ship, and he just looks at his dad as his dad's calling off that red alert. He just doesn't say anything; he just nods his head. And that's the last time he sees his dad. And then right before his dad dies, all that emotion that he had is like, Dad, no. I felt that. And he starts tearing up. And I'm like, oh God, I got emotion teary-eyed in that scene there, because he never really told his dad he forgave him, or that, what he wanted to say. He was just angry at him. And to lose a parent and not be able to say that, it just adds so much more to Cyborg and him. And it's like, why take that out?
It's just one of those things that takes a compelling story and makes it even more compelling.
But Silas knew, I think Silas knew.
Oh, he knew. Yeah.
Well, especially the moment when Cyborg, when Steppenwolf had his father, in his grasp, and Cyborg just loses it. Jumps down there, and Silas is even like, I didn't even think you would come. He's like, well, you're my father.
Well, if you're taking this and you're making this to Greek mythological proportions, which is what this movie was made to, here's a genuine Greek tragedy. His father was within his reach, and his father died.
Oh, you just blew my mind. Oh, wow.
Seth, you've been silent. What are your thoughts on how they treated Cyborg in this version?
Wow. In this version, I love it. I love everything about it. And it's sad, not just for the movie and the fans themselves, but for also Ray Fisher. Because in my opinion, I feel like he gives one of, at least, the best performances in the movie. And technically, if you don't include the theatrical cut, this is his first movie.
Yeah, that's true.
I didn't know that. Wow.
He had the cameo in Batman v Superman, but no lines whatsoever. You mean
first movie as Cyborg?
No, I mean first movie.
Oh,
I didn't know first version. That's kind of cool, actually.
Guy in the chair right there. That's why.
There you go. Here's something else cool, and this is minor compared to the emotional stuff we were just talking about. The fact that Cyborg triggered that alarm to get everybody out. I never thought of that. And that's because, the theatrical cut didn't make you think, right? It's just whatever.
Yeah, shut your brain off.
There were people working there. There were people working in the ship, around the ship. It was a scientific facility. The military was guarding it for a reason. How do you clear that place? And, it did it. You see Cyborg clear it. And I love Silas going, no, we were hacked. And then when they walked in as the team, in that moment you talked about where they nod, Silas goes, never mind. I found the problem. Keep everybody out till I say so. It's like that moment of trust. It's incredible.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, what about him overcoming temptation? Like, he gets inside the mother box. He sees himself whole, and he sees his mom and dad go.
I thought it was. Go ahead. Good. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Rudy.
All right.
Yeah.
I just love how Wonder Woman set that up early on. She goes, "Be careful when you go in there because they're going to use your weaknesses against you, and you're going to see things that are going to confuse you." And it's only poignant, right? I mean, he's in there, and he has to separate himself from his parents. It's his father, him, and his mom, but what it really is, it's the mother boxes, and he has to separate that. It's a beautiful metaphor. It's a beautiful representation of his story arc that he goes, "I'm not alone." And then he just separates himself from his parents. That's like, oh, that's so perfect. That's awesome. Oh God. So I loved it. Sorry. That's it.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, it's
deep.
It's him
It is deep.
it's him finding confidence in himself. He's, we can make you whole again. We can fix you. He's like, and he's just like, I am fixed. I'm not broken. Yeah. That's a moment that he comes to terms with who he is and what he has to offer as who he is now. He justifies himself. He's justified in this movie. So
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So C says, "Hey Durbin, what do you mean by Greek tragedy? Care to elaborate about that?" Greek mythology is all epic. So every loss in Greek mythology is an epic loss. I mean, it's epic proportions. And so it's to epic proportions that Cyborg on this godlike level is having this very human thing where he has had no positive feelings towards his dad. Finally, he's breaking through. Finally, he's loving his father. And just when that happens, his father lays his life down. Like that moment where he sees the true goodness in his father and his father's dead is now the true moment where it's like, I've lost it.
Mm-hmm.
It's an epic proportion. It's an epic loss.
And if I can add to that, I don't. I'm just going to throw this out there, see what you guys think. Again, I was watching it with my girlfriend, and she went to college and she studied theology, religion, and she's never watched comic book movies until she started dating me. So she's watching these films, and she goes, "Pause it." I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Do people realize how deep DC narrative is and what Zack's trying to do?" She goes, "Does general audiences understand that?" I'm like, "No, they don't." She goes, "This is really deep." She goes on this whole explanation that he's using Greek mythology, Catholicism, mythology, and just combining it and bringing in comic book narratives in that space. And she goes, Darkseid is in ways like Old Testament God. No one. I'm like, really? What do you mean? And Steppenwolf's Lucifer. I'm like, really? I never thought of it that way. There's so many narratives you can go with. But she goes, is that why people don't like them so much? Because they're really deep. And I'm like, you're probably right. And what do y'all think about that?
Horror films in DC are my easiest things to do theological analyses on because of how deep they are, how they touch on these spiritual issues. They always take Superman, and not just Snyder, but go back to Superman Returns. When Superman is stabbed in the side, Jesus was stabbed in the side. When Superman is falling like this after he's stabbed in the side, that's the crucifix position. You have that in Smallville, the season 9 finale. Clark takes a blue kryptonite blade to the chest to save the Earth from Zod's tyranny, and so that the Kryptonians can be raptured to a new plane of existence at the same time, and he falls in a crucifix position. DC is deep with this type of imagery and mythology.
Well, yeah, being having a I can't say the word biblical story. Yeah, it's the story is as old as time. It works, and I think Snyder implementing all these mythologies and biblical aspects, it's too deep for people sometimes. They want to shut their brains off a lot of times. Fun family popcorn movie, and I
love those type of movies.
I'm one of those people. Like I love bright shiny things, and that's fine. But I also like to think deep and think deeply about the characters that I'm watching. So, but some. I don't know. When it comes to stories like this, mythological characters, it's one of those things where you just have to let the story pan out before you can really understand and respect the whole story.
Yep.
When you get it in chapters, like Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and then Justice League, each story adds a little bit more to the previous, so people understand it. That's why people are going back to BVS and Man of Steel, and like it's becoming more appreciated now, because now they're seeing the story unfold and it makes more sense. It's not given to them in a 2-hour window,
Right.
Start, finish, and done. It plays into an entire story, and it keeps going. And the more you learn in the future, the more you learn about the past of the films, the previous films.
And if I can add, I love and appreciate the approach that Zack went. Because think about it, Marvel is the template, and they do everything right. I love Marvel films. I don't want to come off that I'm like talking down to them. They do it great, and that's why they're making the money and they have the audience and fan base that they have. But I love that Warner Brothers and Zack could have done the same thing, but they chose not to. They chose to make something maybe long lasting and a little different with a different tone. I love that type of approach. And I love that we as an audience have two different types of takes with comic book material.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I agree with you. Like, I love the Marvel movies. Like, Infinity War is right up there, and that's because in their own way, they've done the same thing. They've given you these small windows that were entertaining for the time that they were, but now you have this huge story that's panning out and making you go back and watch the movies, and appreciating the previous movies as well. So, yeah, it's not a DC, love and Marvel hate, video at all.
So Sean, to bounce off what you're saying here, looking at Darkseid as Old Testament God and Steppenwolf as Lucifer rubs me the wrong way as a youth pastor, but very interesting to think about. I'm with you on that a little bit, Sean, because I kind of I think of Darkseid as Lucifer and Steppenwolf as that demon that Lucifer doesn't even care about.
Yeah.
But like you said, though, like it's interesting how we could have this type of conversation.
Right.
And I love movies that are deep enough where you can get in there and you can find it. I did this in my spoiler talk. I thought Superman rising from the dead and his two fathers speaking to him, I thought that's very representative of the voice of the Holy Spirit. That when we've been tested, tried, we're hurt, we're down, then God comes in and says, I love you. Now rise up and love the world as I have loved you. Like, those are the type of moments and the type of things that I see. So I love that. And we got to get into this right here. Your thoughts on Manhunter. So before we hit Flash, I've seen this pop up more than once. So let's go.
Seth?
I'm not a huge fan of the cameo. And
ooh, hot take.
I'm saying that just because it feels like it's forced in there. Like, it doesn't add anything to the rest of the movie. It feels like it's just tacked on at the end. And I don't like how Batman reacts to it. Because at first he's like, who are you? And the Martian Manhunter is like, oh, I'm a protector, I'm here to help. And Batman's like, cool. I'm going back to bed. It's like,
going back to bed.
It's like, that's it, just cool. Like, no, you're not going to ask any questions, maybe question, oh, is this guy evil or not? Like,
how do you know where I live?
Yeah, that's it. Just cool. Well, we need more. And then that's it. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Martian Man, he looks cool, and I'm glad they got, I can't remember his name.
Henry
Lennox? Harry Lennox?
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah, I'm glad
I forget his name too, but yeah.
Martian Manhunter, though. I like that idea.
I agree with Seth. The specifically with the scene where he visits Bruce Wayne, it does seem forced and a little bit of fan service, which is okay. Zack's allowed to do that. It's good to have fan service, but like it just seems so okay. Well, we didn't give you good explanation of this character, so he's here now in case these movies go forward. So they were just letting you know he'll be in the next one if we make one.
Right, he exists.
But on the other side of that, I did love it when he was disguised as Martha, or Martha Manhunter, as I call her.
There you go. I'll agree with that. You like that?
I did like that scene. It was actually a double-edged sword for me because it was such an emotional scene between Martha and Lois, and then it actually wasn't Martha at all. But I think that was a good introduction to Martian Manhunter in this movie. But then that forced interaction with Bruce, I'm on Seth's side with that one. It was a bit forced for me.
Yeah, for me,
but he did look good.
Yeah, he looked great. But after the fourth time watching the Snyder Cut, I was like, it was fan service. I loved it when I first saw it, but as I think about it more, I start overthinking. Like, is he always Henry Lennox? Is that his name? The general?
I think
Has-
so. Henry,
Has he
I can't
always
remember.
been the general, or is he just acting like the general? Has he always been? He's not always been Martha Kent, but how did he know so much about Martha being Clark's son? I'm
Well,
like,
he can read minds, so I just
did he?
assumed.
I didn't know that. I didn't
Well,
know
yeah,
that.
I mean, if you like, for
I don't know
instance,
much about Martian Manhunter.
going to Man of Tomorrow, that movie, he can read minds. And it's very interesting how they use his mind reading ability in that animated movie, Man of Tomorrow. But anyway, yeah, he can read minds. So I would picture if he's been around Clark or he's been around Martha, he's got their info.
Oh, okay. Well, that kind of helps him. But again, to everybody, as much as I love this film, and I gave it a 10 out of 10, that particular character seemed a little forced. I just wish we got a little bit more of him. And I like the end. I read a rumor that it was supposed to be Green Lantern at the very end. Like they wanted.
I heard that too. I liked it better as Martian Manhunter.
Yeah. I think
think
Ryan Reynolds would have been funny. Like, hey, check him out. You know, that would have been funny, but they didn't work.
But that's because the Green Lantern rumor I heard, it wasn't like Hal Jordan. For some reason, it was Kilowog and Toma Ray, which that didn't make sense to me. Why would they be going to
Kilowog
Bruce?
did show up in the film, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Was he the dead one? In the
Yeah.
future look? Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Nice.
it was.
I was wondering who that was. I didn't catch it. So I got to watch it 3 more times before I could catch all those, little subtleties. So here's what I'm going to take what we just had about the deep talk, and we're going to bring that in with Smallville to our Martian Manhunter. So what I liked about Martian Manhunter, especially talking to Martha, it took me back to Smallville season 6. So Rudy, maybe you can remember this with me.
Okay.
When that Phantom from the Phantom Zone possesses Clark and takes Clark inside of his own mind, and he's trapped. So Martian Manhunter uses his psychic abilities and gets into Clark's head with it. And what I said in my review was the demon wanted Clark to forget who he was and to think he was crazy for ever thinking he was super. And Martian Manhunter was there. And again, the comparison to the Holy Spirit saying, remember who you are. You are not this powerless person. You are something special, and bringing it back to him.
Yeah.
So what this reminds me of is when he came as Martha Kent, here's Lois kind of trapped in the recesses of her own mind, like Clark in season 6 of Smallville, kind of caught in her grief. And in compassion, here comes Martian Manhunter with a familiar face and a familiar voice, speaking what needs to be spoken to draw her back out of her prison, out of her shell, saying the world needs Lois Lane, and kind of validating the importance of her character even without Superman. I agree. The ending felt shoehorned. It did. It kind of had that feel of, why is Bruce reacting this way? I think it's supposed to be funny. Oh, I'm used to seeing aliens now. But
just another day at the office. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, the Martha moment was great. So maybe if they didn't have that last thing at the end, but left it with Martha, I think that would have made that perfect.
Yeah, but the costume design looks great. He looks great. I don't know if it's CGI or prosthetics, but he looks great. I love the movie film version of him.
Going back to the Martha thing, I don't know. I think there's a double-edged sword when it comes to Martian Manhunter posing as somebody else. There's a deception there that, yes, he's doing the right thing. It's just like Cyborg. He's when he gave that woman all the money in the bank account, and he, hacked the computers and changed the grades of his friend. It was, the heart was there, but there's a deception that makes it just not right. I don't know the character Martian Manhunter. I really don't. This is really my first introduction to him. I never watched Smallville or anything like that, and I don't read the comics, but I don't know. There's a deception there that's like, he's doing the right thing, but it leaves a bitter taste in my mouth.
Well, there are arguments to be made for that. So, I think what we need is him to appear in Justice League 2. I think that's what we need. Because again, like a lot of stuff is left hanging in BVS and gets fulfilled when we see Justice League.
Yeah.
Like us, I think the reason none of us is super familiar with Martian Manhunter is because a lot of times he hasn't made great solo stories. The only times he's made great stories is when he's in Justice League. So usually we get him as a side character, not as a main character. So he's not somebody we focus on. And so what we need is to get to know him better. And we need a Zack Snyder's Justice League 2 to kind of fill in the gaps that we're having right now. But Steve, I do agree with you, but maybe there's more to his thinking that we need to get into and understand the same way we literally got into Cyborg's mind in this movie.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. Like, as I said, this is just letting you know, like, hey, be prepared. Martian Manhunter is going to be in the next one if we make it. and we'll hash this out when we get there. But we just want to set the ground now that yes, he's in this world.
Do you guys think we'll get a part 2?
I don't know. I want it, but I don't want to get my hopes up and have them crushed.
That's what I'm doing. I'm not getting my hopes up for it. I would love if they announced it and did it. I'd be like, yeah, of course I want it. You know, like I love all 3 of these movies. Why wouldn't I want more? You know, but if they don't do it, I'll understand. You know, like Zach is, you know, he's got other things on his plate. You know, he's doing this whole Army of the Dead universe, not just the one movie. And I even heard he's working on a King Arthur movie at one point. So
I would see that in a heartbeat. I love King Arthur movies, and a Snyder Arthur movie, I'm down.
One of his favorite films is Excalibur.
Nice.
So that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've been on the edge of my seat waiting for the Snyder Cut to be announced for 3 years, or 2 years rather than waiting for this one to come out. But like, I think I'm ready to sit back and relax and enjoy that the Snyder Cut is out. If they continue it, I'll be ecstatic. I'll be so happy.
Yeah.
If they don't, okay, well, it is what it is. But I hope they do. I do want to see it continued. I would follow this universe, you know, as closely as possible. But like, when it comes to, you know, the whole Snyder Cut thing, Seth and I have been a part of that from like the beginning. And right now we're just kind of like, okay, we've ran this marathon. We're going to sit down and relax for a little bit. I'm not even trying to think about the Snyderverse in the future. Yes, I want to see it. Sure. But we got what we wanted. We got what we fought for.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're just going to like sit back and just let things pan out.
Now is the time to be thankful, and we'll be more thankful if something else comes.
Correct.
Right.
Yes. So let's dive into The Flash right now. My freaking goodness. I mean, he was one of my favorite characters in the theatrical cut. I don't know why. He's a little wiry, but whatever. He's fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I really enjoyed how we dived into his character in this movie. And I especially love that whole slow motion scene, little reminiscent of Quicksilver, at the same time, different enough to be set apart of its own thing. I mean, I loved it when he's catching Iris and he's captivated by her beauty and he stares at, a hot dog, puts that in his pocket. What did you guys think of this amazing Flash and his entire character development through, Rudy, what you were going to mention, that epic scene that he had?
When I first saw that, I jumped off the sofa. I had my hands behind my head. I'm like, this is so amazing. I had my jaw to the ground, and it made sense because it was set up earlier. He says, when I approach the speed of light, the time ribbon or time travel or time spectrum gets a little hazy. He doesn't like going that fast. That's one of his rules he doesn't want to break. But the fact that he did that and was bringing everybody back to life as he was running, I just had like this nerd moment where, again, emotion, jaw to the ground. And then I got angry because I thought somebody saw this and said, no, we want him pushing a truck. Let's get him pushing a family in a truck. Yeah, that'll be gold, kids. Yes, let's do that. Let's take this epic sequence out and put a family in there. That'll get the audience connected with this family. That'll work. Like, oh!
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it, right? He's running circles to build that charge. And already the tension is building because he's like, I can't hold it, Victor. Yes. And then again, Greek tragedy. The moment Victor is ready is the moment he gets hit by one of those turrets, by the laser. But I loved it because he hit the ground and he's like, like he's panicking, he's fearful, he's in pain. We all know he heals fast. And we're begging right alongside with him, please heal fast. All of that buildup was incredible to that moment where the shockwave is coming and he vibrates through it so it doesn't hurt him. And then he's got to run. And his little speech to his dad, like what he's saying, Dad, your boy is one of them. One of the ones that ran with the greats. I'm getting emotional. And I've seen that scene. That's part of my 1.5 views where I've seen that scene twice. Mm-hmm. And like, as he's stepping forward and there's nothing under his foot, then all of a sudden ground reappears under and his foot touches down on solid and he's continuing to run forward. I was like, I got chills both times that I watched that.
It's beautiful. It's and then the score, XL Junkie score, it just adds to it. Like it's like a John Williams type of feel, and you just get emotional. But I also have on my scenes, that the little human scenes, I love how He meets his dad at the end. He goes, "Say, I got my foot in the door." And his dad's reaction, "Hey, my son's got his foot in the door." I got emotional on that scene because
Yeah.
it's a nice
I taught him
little
nothing he
moment.
knows.
Yes, that's
Dad,
such a
stop.
cool
They're gonna
dad
mace you
moment.
again. They're gonna mace you again, Dad. Stop.
Yeah, that was a beautiful moment.
Go ahead.
I really enjoyed. Obviously, I really enjoyed his his character arc developing more. I wasn't a fan of the hot dog moment. It was awkward for
I
me.
just thought it was funny.
Wait, hold on. I'm not done. Not done. But when it paid off with the dogs, I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. It just wasn't an awkward, like, okay, he's in this weird situation in love with this girl, and he also wants a hot dog. No, he was setting up, the aftermath of how to cover his story.
Yes.
But, and that kind of explains how his mind worked. It's all over the place. Like,
Right.
This moment, then, oh, hot dog, I can use that later. So it kind of ties to his whole character.
And the very, at the very end, when everything just explodes, and this is what I needed from Flash. In my review for Justice League, I said, Flash is pretty much pointless. You have two speedsters and he doesn't bring anything else to the table. And this justifies him being in this movie. He not only brings something else to the table, but he's learning more about himself. We see him develop, and that's something the last movie didn't have. And it was like he could have been out of that movie, the Justice League film, and it really wouldn't have mattered too much, And yeah, he was totally justified in this film, and I'm very. It makes me happy not only that is he justified, but he's the one that really saved the day at the end. I mean, they all did, but he's like
Everybody
the one
had a key
really
role.
saved the day. He's like he saved the universe. He's the one that brought it back. That was such a beautiful way to tell that part of his story.
So hot takes for nerds. I'm curious because you make a valid point. Well, to be honest, I still feel the same about Barry. I didn't think he was funny. He is less cringeworthy than WB's cut, and his moment in the end was an epic moment. But like, so you still felt he was the same, but was that epic moment like truly epic for you? Like, was the hair on the back of your neck standing up when Barry becomes the most crucial member in the Justice League? Tossing that out there.
For me, it reminded me of Flashpoint. I don't know if you guys have seen the anime. Oh,
yeah.
There's my dog. But it reminded me of Flashpoint, and I was like, this is perfect. And the emotional weight I felt in Flashpoint was the same in this scene.
Yeah, I agree. It was powerful to see him turn back time, and it didn't feel like time travel is now a convenient thing they could use, like Superman turning the world back in Superman the movie. This is still, like Stevie said, he's still learning about himself. This is a dangerous game that he's playing, but we really saw the stakes in this moment, which made this such a great moment.
Yeah, I mean, I already said what I had to say about that moment. Yeah. It was great, and it was not only, as I said, justifying his character, but it was cinematically speaking, it was just a beautiful shot. It was a beautiful way to illustrate that moment. You see him you see him lost out in the universe, and then each step he's piecing back time.
It's pretty cool.
Not only that, but then when he gets back there and you see Superman, who died twice now,
yes,
it's gory, but it's poetically beautiful at the same time. Everyone getting pieced back together. And what makes it even more great is that it ties back into when they resurrected Superman, when he kind of first dipped his toes in the water for I guess that kind of, for lack of a better term, to turn back time a little bit so he can touch that mother box at the right time. It's not just I coincidentally showed up at the right time. I had to time it perfectly. No, I can kind of manipulate time so I time it perfectly.
That was a really cool moment for Flash in that thing too. Yeah,
right, and that pays off later. That's what makes it's the balance of this moment that I think is great.
So we got to get into this now. This was epic, was it not? How they, instead of leaving us twisting in the wind about the nightmare vision, they raised more questions about it and satisfied you so much more. Like, for instance, when Bruce has that vision at the end and then wakes up, there was no Flash traveling through time and no time displacement. So how did Bruce get the premonition at the end? At the same time, it continues to validate that future. And you really felt the stakes with it. Because like I said, that moment where Cyborg has the nightmare vision and he said, no. And Barry's like, go? Like, it's like, oh, crap. I mean, this is something that weighs over us all. And that moment where Superman had two fathers speaking to him, I was desperately hoping, okay, did that change our future? But when we had that epic thing at the end, we saw that future looms over us. So what actually, I mean, we got rumors and stuff, right? But what actually creates that future? So if you're watching it without rumors, without any of that, so let's imagine that for a moment. What is making this future loom? And what it does is it validates it, gives it tremendous weight. They acknowledge it. It's a major part of the story, and you just want more. Plus, I want more Joker. I never thought I'd say that about Jared Leto's Joker.
Right. I just love that exchange. I think the next to Heath Ledger and Christian Bale in The Dark Knight, this is my second favorite exchange between Batman and Joker. It was pretty cool to see them as allies. And here's a card, and as long as you hold it, it's truce. So like, oh, that's pretty cool. I like that.
The card itself, that's something coincidentally.
Seth, tell us about that card, Seth.
Yeah, it was coincidentally the night before when we had the BVS party, 2 nights ago. Seth brought this up during the flashback scene, and now don't just tell him what you brought up, but also tell him what you noticed in this one as well.
So, yes, the other night we were watching Batman v Superman, and I tried to point out that he had a Joker card on his gun. Unfortunately, I must have pointed it out at the wrong time because when I mentioned it, they never showed it again. But
yeah, I missed it. But I'm looking for it now.
I know it was there.
I believe you.
I think you're right. Yeah, that's when they're getting the kryptonite rock, right? That sequence right before. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
But so you watch the new Nightmare scene, and you have the whole truce thing with the Joker. As long as you have this card, there's a truce between us. Rip it in half to break that truce. Well, if you remember the Nightmare scenes from earlier, where it was like kind of flashing a little bit more, like it showed Darkseid killing Wonder Woman.
Right.
It showed Darkseid killing Aquaman, and then it had Superman holding Batman's cowl.
Yeah.
Joker card flies across.
Oh, that was actually Lois. Lois' dead body. He was holding Lois.
Yes.
But he's also holding the cowl of Batman.
Well, there was the other one where it's showing the mass destruction.
Oh,
so
he's holding the
Cyborg
head.
had the vision with dead Lois, and then this vision, I think, had Superman holding the cowl or something.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yes. And the Joker card flies across the screen, and it's ripped in half. So I was wondering.
Ooh, I didn't notice that either.
What happens there? Like, clearly he breaks the truce, and even in the Nightmare scene, he tells Joker, he's like, "I will kill you." So I'm guessing that time must have come.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I never noticed the Joker card on the gun in BVS before, and I think it's kind of poetic how you brought it up just in casual conversation to Durbin and I the other night, and then the very next day we watched the Snyder Cut, and there's that scene with the Joker card. We're like, oh my god, there's the Joker card.
Yep.
And then you bring it up to me today, like it's actually ripped in half later. I'm like, oh gosh, okay. But that Nightmare sequence, the ending for me was, well, I'll put it this way. It was awesome, but I was a little confused about like you said, Durbin, how is he seeing this vision now? When Flash isn't there.
That's an interesting question. Did Martian Manhunter push that vision on him? So since he's got the psychic abilities.
I don't know about Martian Manhunter. I don't know his abilities, so I don't know. And like in my world, that very possibly could be so. But the way I see it is, when something like that happens to you, like it's like you keep that with you. Like he might keep having those nightmares, and that's the way I've kind of justified it in my own mind. Be like, okay, this is something that's might come in waves at him. That might happen, but it could be Martian Manhunter. Again, I don't know that character very well, so that could possibly be it.
And I just know rumors. I don't want to speculate or like spoil anything if you guys haven't seen the storyboards to Justice League 2 and 3. that Zach and somebody had leaked. They're like in display in Dallas. Like this is what the
yeah, they put them in display, and now they're mad that everyone's taking pictures of them.
Yeah, that one. So we all know about it. Yeah. So if anything that's lingering, or it's Batman, he's the key to the whole thing. And then Lois also being pregnant at the end of this film is what would trigger Superman when Darkseid kills Lois in the next one. So that's what turns him into the anti-life equation. That's when he's vulnerable. The Darkseid takes him over. So I think the fact that Cyborg had that notification saying that, hey, you started a path that cannot be undone, and Lois getting pregnant and Superman being back, it started a chain of events. So it's maybe since he's close to the events, that's why he's having it. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe it could very now. Hot takes for nerds again says this. I don't know about that scene. I should like it for the idea and back and forth conversation, but I thought the lingering was annoying and the out of focus and handheld shots were not necessary. On the one hand, like, yep, I agree. But on the other hand, I was watching it with different eyes. Like, it did drive me nuts that it stayed out of focus on Joker's face in that one shot much longer than it needed to. At the same time, I was totally distracted by how impressed I was with Jared Leto. So it's like, I kind of get where you're coming from, but I disliked that Joker in Suicide Squad. And here I am, listening to this Joker, like, look, he's making the weirdest demented faces, the way he's talking, no damage tattooed across his forehead, but just the way he's talking and his personality and his mannerisms, like that moment where Batman says, I'm going to kill you. And, he's shaking and he goes, I almost thought you were serious. I'm sitting there going,
worst Joker laugh ever.
I think it was meant to be the worst Joker laugh ever. I feel like this is a Joker that has sort of lost that mojo.
It was the worst Joker laugh ever in Suicide Squad. Like,
but there's something creepy enough about him that I'm like, can we develop that? That's something I want to see developed. Whereas Suicide Squad is like, this one, I'm sitting here going, develop this. I think if you took your time with this and had him interact with more characters, it could give us more and it could take him further.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a fan of Jared Leto's Joker. Well, let me rephrase that. I accept Jared Leto's Joker. I've always been hopeful for his redemption for sure.
Right.
But when it comes back to that scene specifically, when he's going in and out of focus, I might look at this a little differently, but I almost see this from Batman's perspective, or even the rest of the
That's
team.
what I was going to bring up.
How tired and weary, and it just shows how exhausted they are. When a director decides to put things in and out of focus, I think he's trying to create an atmosphere so we kind of understand where everyone else is, in their head at that moment. That's just the way I took it. I don't think it was a directorial, I just want to show Joker in a weird, creative way. I think there's a reason behind it, and that's how I took that.
Well, if you notice, like what Joker's saying, it goes into focus when he delivers a line. Why did you send a boy wonder to do a man's job? And that's when it goes from looking at the cards to the direction.
And that's what Batman was saying. Don't go there.
Yeah.
And then he went there.
Yeah.
Like an idiot.
Yeah, because in Batman's world, Joker just rambles on about random crap all the time, and then when it hits close to home, focus.
Tunnel vision.
I think Rudy and I are on the same page with that aspect. But also, Joker says something very interesting in that scene, and I can't quite remember exactly how he said it, but he did hint at what was it? How many
multi-universes are going to be destroyed until you
how many different universes are going to be destroyed because you won't die? That to me is probably one of the biggest biggest impacts of dialogue, of what could come from in the future of these movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because then it makes you think, is this the same nightmare vision as in BVS? Or is this did they change something yet again? Like, you sit there and you wonder, because he said that, how many timelines will you tank because you're not willing to die? And it's like, how many times have you attempted this then? How many times did you send the flashback before this?
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think we'll get the rug pulled out from under our feet like that. I'm pretty sure
I don't either, but it makes a great question.
One dream sequence, and that might be a little too much to handle mentally.
Yeah.
But I think it does hint at the possibilities of them being aware of there being multiple timelines or multiple dimensions or multiple universes and whatnot. I think that's a very, very important piece of dialogue, and I'm surprised Jared Leto presented it in Justice League.
Yeah.
We live in a world where we can say that Jared Leto in Justice League presented
Pretty cool.
very important dialogue.
Well, it's funny because everybody was so mad at the line Jared Leto said in the trailer because it was some meme or something that somebody attributed to the Joker. So here in the trailer, he turns to the camera and he's like, "Nobody has honor anymore," or whatever the line was. I don't care. But then they switched it. So it wasn't that at all in this. And I was like, why would you do that? But that's okay because I got something totally unexpected at the end of that movie. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But let's take it home talking about these last two things. We got ourselves Darkseid and Steppenwolf. Now, we've talked about them throughout a lot of this, so we might not have a ton of new stuff to add. But one of the things that I definitely want to add is you couldn't have made Steppenwolf more uninteresting or more vanilla in Justice League, especially when we were at that time when it was released. Our mindset was gearing up for Infinity War and Thanos, and that was DC's way to compete was with that guy. Are you kidding me? Like, it was horrible. And so, and like I said earlier, it's like, where does he stand in the ranking of things? He says for Darkseid once, but what does that have? Is he trying to compete with Darkseid? But this movie made him interesting. He is disgraced in the eyes of Darkseid, and he wants to earn his position back.
Mm-hmm.
And so bringing in Darkseid and the communication between him and Darkseid was amazing and made everything that much more interesting. And then when you bring in Darkseid and everybody just bows low, all the parademons just get low. And it's like, it really just showed you what we're dealing with here. Back to our theological or mythological statements here, where it's like, this is the freaking devil of hell. I mean, what did you guys think as we were getting into that?
Well, to your point, I like that scene where he shows up and everyone like bows. And did you notice Steppenwolf's armor? He just takes off his armor and he's just like, he doesn't have it on as he's kneeling. It's like his face and armor is like not even on his chest or anything like that. I thought that was really cool. A nice little detail. But as far as Darkseid, I love that we got just enough. Remember when we talked about our pregame, we didn't think we were going to get anything. We thought it was going to be a small thing, like a segment where he just shows up. That's it. But he had a presence, and we saw him like throughout the film. So I love that. But as I mentioned earlier, Steppenwolf is just so fleshed out. I had sympathy for him at one point, and I just love how they. One thing I think James Cameron said is you can make somebody look like a complete alien, but if you give them human eyes, the audience will connect. And I love that the emotion in Steppenwolf's eyes when he was talking to Darkseid in Darkseid, you can see that he just wants to go home, but he's in debt for 50,000 planets, which is that sucks.
But he get in that debt with one planet. The fact that the mother box showed him this is the lost planet. This is the planet Darkseid lost to that you guys forgot about. This is the planet that has the anti-life equation. It's funny. And he's being a Christian, I get theological about this, and I go, how awesome would it be if the anti-life equation is in what was once the Garden of Eden where man fell?
Oh, dude.
Boom.
You need to do a video of all like a theological comparisons. You need to.
I know. I can't wait. I'm thinking about all the ways I can do it, but like that was one of those things I kept thinking. It's like, what if that's where the Garden of Eden was? The flood destroyed it. Now comes Darkseid and he knocks it, and right where man fell is the anti-life equation.
Oh,
that would be awesome.
Oh, I love that idea, dude. That got me all hyped.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of Steppenwolf's storyline. As I said in my review about him, there is no emotional attachment. You either have sympathy for your antagonist or you completely hate your antagonist. And he had neither one of those in the previous film.
No.
This one, you have sympathy for him. You might not, I personally, I'm not on the side of, Steppenwolf. I'm like, I don't really.
Right.
But for,
like Thanos,
I don't.
You understood his thinking. You can get in his head.
I don't buy into why he's doing it. I'm not like, oh, I understand why he's doing this. No, I do to a degree, but not the degree that he would want me to. I buy into his integrity because he has been casted out. He made a mistake, and now he's just trying to get back in. and uh, and I agree about the eyes. The eyes is something that I pointed out to my son. I was like, there's something about this movie where his eyes are they show way more emotion.
Right.
Than, like I was like, what I said to Seth was, I know what color his eyes are in this movie. I couldn't tell you what color his eyes are in the previous movie because I paid attention to them. They made them. They showcased them. There was a point. There was a lot of emotion to be shown there, and also on the production of it. I'm so happy that Ciarán Hinds, the guy that played Steppenwolf, actually has this moment for his character to shine the way that he thought he would. Because I've only seen him say one quote about this movie. He may have said more, but I've only seen one, and it was something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing, what I saw in this movie is not the movie I thought I was filming, and I hope one day that this film, the movie I shot will see the light of day, and now like the justice that he got in that movie. Like I can only imagine how happy he is right now seeing his character come to life the way that he imagined it would, 5 or 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole huge emotional ball with Steppenwolf and just how much more rich his character is. Plus Ciarán Hinds, getting justified, in his world. I think to me, it touches me more emotionally because I love artists getting what they, what they earn. And I respect that. Now, when it comes to Darkseid, this dude, he's not in the movie. He's not a huge presence. Well, let me rephrase that. He's a huge presence in the movie, but not visually. He doesn't have to be there. The desperation for Steppenwolf to talk to him, and the moments that he does show up, he powers, and physically he towers over everybody. Like he has this presence that you don't want to mess with this guy. This guy is freaking terrifying, and even more terrifying at the very end when he decides to handle things himself by going old school. I don't know about y'all. I don't know how y'all grew up, but when I grew up, my dad said, "I'm about to go old school on you." I was in the worst trouble. That's the worst way to go about it right there. So that's awesome. Well done. Well done. I'm rambling. Sorry.
I will say this. When I saw or was about to see the 2017 cut, I was about to go to the theater. I was talking about it, and I was like, if I had to choose one thing I could see from this movie, I want to see Darkseid. I was like, we have yet to actually see a true or modern live action Darkseid.
Right.
I was like, that's what I want to see from this movie. And, clearly when that movie came out, we didn't get that. And I was fairly disappointed in that. I was like, well, I really wanted to see Darkseid. I even freaked out when they just mentioned his name. I was like, oh yes, Darkseid. So seeing him in this movie, I was freaking out on the inside. Like I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. Not just seeing Darkseid, but the scene at the end when they kill Steppenwolf, seeing Darkseid and Justice League face to face.
Right.
I was like,
oh, that was amazing.
I was like, this is great. This is everything I wanted from. This is everything I wanted back in 2017.
Yeah, when that boom tube opened, Darkseid. And the whole league turned and they faced Darkseid, and then Darkseid to Sod, and somebody in our comments theorized the white-haired person might have been Granny Goodness. But when you had them, I didn't know that. I was trying to figure that out earlier, but I'm glad to know that. But when they turned to face oh gosh, it was such a great moment.
And to tack on to what Seth said here about the when he mentioned Darkseid and Justice League, whenever I heard him say for Darkseid in Justice League, it just sounded like such a desperate line to throw in there, to throw some sort of mythology into this movie, about Darkseid. But when he says for Darkseid in this movie, and it's the same take, it's the same one he says.
Yeah, it's different.
The impact is just so...
Well, everything hits you different in this movie. Everything. I mean, the musical score, the writing, the change in context, the extra 4 hours that gives you all of this other stuff that we didn't get, the way it all combines together. everything hits different in this movie, and it's incredible how it does that. I
do have one complaint though.
Go ahead.
Or two complaints about the same character, Batman.
Do it.
Batman. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it might be just
give me some hate on this video.
It's not hate. It's not hate. It's not hate, but it might just be a result of how this film was handled, leading up to its release. Number one, the color correction on his bat suit is in and out, and it bugs the crap out of me. Sometimes his bat suit is all black because it looks like Snyder tried to color correct it to be black instead of that blue tint, and then other times it's blue tint. And I noticed that it's just not consistent, and that really bugs me. But also his voice, he doesn't have the resonator on a lot of his dialogue in this movie, and it's very inconsistent. There's there'll be one scene where he says something and you hear the bat voice, the voice altering his voice, the thing altering his voice, and then he'll say something else and it's clearly just Ben Affleck's voice, and I cannot for the life of me figure out why. We watched it twice. I tried to make sure I was right in thinking what I was thinking, and every time we watched it, I probably annoyed the crap out of Seth. I'm like, see, no voice thing. What the hell? What the heck's his problem here?
I noticed the voice thing. I didn't notice the color correct thing. So now, when I go watch it 3 more times, I will probably be carefully looking for that.
Yeah, and you'll see it in the same scene. You'll see it like one shot, like the bat suit looks dark. It doesn't have that blue tint, and then the very next one, you can recognize that blue tint. And I'm like, they tried, but I don't know. But that's literally my only real complaint about this film. So,
well, that's good. If that's your only real complaint, that is such a minor thing in the mix of such an epic story.
After seeing it 4 times, I mentioned in my review that I would not take out anything. But after the 4th time, I'm like, if I wanted to nitpick the film, there's about maybe 15 minutes of scenes that they could take away that wouldn't impact the story. I noticed, like with the introductions with Aquaman or Flash, there's this really prolonged musical score with slow motion film, and I'm like, okay, they could speed this up a little bit, but that's me just nitpicking, and I'm finding something to be critical about. But that's really
I'm going to need to watch it 4 more times before I start to develop those nitpicks, because only seeing it 1.5 times, I'm still basking in the nostalgia. Sadly, I filmed my ranking video just before we went live, basking in this nostalgia. So it'll be fun for y'all to see me gush in that one. But anyway.
Once I actually sit down and write my review for this, I'm probably going to watch it 1 more time before I do, because I'm like you, Durbin. I get all excited. I'm like, oh, yay, I like this movie. But I need to sit down and be like, okay, let me pick this apart a little bit more.
Yeah. But you know what? Sometimes I just don't want to be the film critic. Even though that's what I do on my channel, I'm a movie reviewer. I understand what my role is. But sometimes I just want to be the nerd out with me. And if you have criticism, that's okay. I'll pick them up later when I'm not as high on this. But right now, I like to ride this ride. This is a good comment. How do you think Darkseid killed Lois Lane in the Nightmare Vision, and why? And I think it's obvious. It's Darkseid kills Lois Lane to make Superman vulnerable so that he could infuse him with the anti-life equation.
Yep. Somehow they blame it on Batman. Batman has something to do with that.
And I can't wait to see what that. Well, we might never see what it is, but I would like to see that. What were you going to say, Rudy? Before I interrupt.
What was I going to say? I think I forgot. Oh, what were we talking about? My mind just totally forgot. It was a point. What you were just saying. What were you just talking about before that comment?
I can't even remember. I got caught up on that comment there.
You know what? I forgot. Never mind.
Yeah, Aaron White's got a good point. I love how this movie is 4 hours long and there's still so much story left to tell. Stevie went to a lot of my plays when I was in high school. So one thing I learned in theater, you leave your audience wanting more. So the fact that this has left us wanting more, it did its job. And I love that.
And if you ever want to hear some of those stories about me going to Durbin's plays in high school, check out my channel. I think there's a Full Frontal Nerdy podcast that him and I did where we went down that rabbit hole. And there's some fun stories to be told.
There it is.
Nice. Little side note there.
Seth, do you have any things that were kind of negative to you when you were watching this movie, or?
Just a couple random small things that most of which he pointed out to me, like Cyborg leaving randomly. in that one scene.
When they're in the underground tunnels.
Yeah, Cyborg just flies away.
Yeah, it was
But
hashed.
that's like a tiny thing.
It was hashed out better in Justice League.
Isn't that funny? A few things might have been hashed out a little better in Justice League, but overall, this one, Snyder Cut, did a better story.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But what Seth is describing here, like in Justice League, Cyborg, you clearly see him like get distraught, and then he takes off, to go get the mother box.
Right.
In this one, you don't get that distraught. You don't see anything. He's just like, oh, I got to get this, this weird spider vehicle up this wall, and then he just disappears. That's. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hijack that.
That's all right.
Bad.
But also, another slightly bigger thing, I guess, that I don't like is most of the epilogue. And I've already talked about what I don't like about it. With Martian Manhunter, but as a whole, it feels like a montage, is how I described it, of scenes that we were promised that had nowhere else to be in the movie. So they just.
I kind of felt that a little bit too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I heard they were supposed to be post-credit scenes that they just kind of threw together, so everybody can just get everything at once.
Because the original style, though, of Man of Steel and BVS is no post-credit scene. So I on one hand, I kind of respect that. And honestly, when it said epilogue, my brain kicked into post-credit scene mode, which I guess then makes the Nightmare Vision way too long. But but that's kind of what my brain kicked into.
And it's kind of funny to think about, like, if it was post-credit scenes, like 2 or 3 different post-credit scenes, it wouldn't seem that way. It would actually seem more justified to be choppy like that. That's actually a very interesting view on that.
Aaron misses the Pet Cemetery line. Yeah, that was a great line.
I'm sorry, Aaron. I did not miss that line. I did miss. Did he just bail? I did miss that line. I did, and I also, not going to lie, I really did miss the Lasso of Truth Aquaman bit. So
that was pretty funny. It was, because it was a funny moment of getting into Aquaman's heart, something that he never would have opened up to.
Right.
What was with the shirt of Aquaman? LOL. He comes out of the water wearing a shirt, but takes it off before he goes back into it. I thought that was hilarious. That's my one complaint. LOL.
Actually, I might have a theory on that. I noticed when he goes back into the water, he leaves his shirts behind.
Yeah.
And then the girl picks it up, smells it, and sings over it.
Yeah, that was kind of,
That was a little. I didn't mind the song, kind of whatever, like she's worshiping a god, but the weird, like she's picking it up, and I'm like, what is that?
I kind of theorized a little love interest there. I theorized a little side piece Aquaman may have had, but
exactly.
When he threw down that sweater and like went into the water, I kind of looked at it as he's leaving, more clothes, like kind of charity, but the shirt he threw in the water, so I can't really defend that. But that my theory was maybe he buys these clothes when he's there to help financial people towns, and then leaves the clothes when he leaves. That's kind of what went through my head. But yeah.
My complaints would be overabundance of slow-mo. Did you guys think the slow-mo, it reminded me of 300 a little bit, but it worked for me just because it had a graphic novel feel. But then he said some of the character interactions are mostly exposition and speeches that aren't needed, but that's typical of Snyder stuff. So I guess I can't complain. Ha ha.
Well, the
it didn't
slow-mo
feel
is like
that exposition-y to me, but anyway, go on.
The slow-mo is really not a big deal. It's a Zack Snyder film, so I know what to expect. I mean, that's his thing. So I wouldn't say overabundance, but it is a 4-hour film, so I guess that can get repetitive. But I knew what to expect walking in, so
yeah,
that didn't bother me at all.
Yeah, I wasn't bothered by it. I didn't even think about it, to be honest.
I did think about it, but it didn't. I wasn't like, oh, okay, this is getting obnoxious or anything. But I definitely noticed it happening a lot.
All right, we're going to start wrapping this up soon, but we got this comment here. The Bruce X Diana relationship hint was interesting. Any thoughts? So are you saying like an X relationship, or are you just hinting at maybe a budding relationship? I did kind of feel like there was a budding thing in both versions.
I mean, it's better than Bruce Wayne and Lois Lane.
Yeah. That's our next comment. If Batman got Lois pregnant, she may have died in childbirth. Wait, if Superman got Lois pregnant, she may have died in childbirth.
Pretty much,
right?
yeah.
Because Batman's human, so that would have been a normal baby. Superman, she lays out in the sun, she's in trouble.
Yeah. Well, okay. So here we are. I don't think. I don't know. I think it's only natural to have some chemistry between a male and female character. Like Batman and Wonder Woman. But I've read the bits and pieces about Batman actually impregnating Lois. That was one of the original ideas that Snyder put out there, and I have a hard time getting behind that. Maybe it would have been presented well where I would have bought into it, but like it's just, I don't know. It's just a weird situation. So I'm glad that they didn't go that route, but I didn't really catch much, hinting at a budding previous relationship between Batman and Wonder Woman.
I mean, they do a lot of that chemistry in the Justice League 100%. Like you could definitely see that there.
Well, yeah, it's like low hanging fruit of, trying to invest into, getting two characters.
But honestly, I'm glad we did drop the Bruce Lois storyline, or at least it wasn't in there. Cause I don't like that. Like you said, Steve, it could have been presented well. I mean, look how well this story was presented. I could sit here and say, I don't like that. And then watch Snyder present it in such a way that I'm like, I'm converted. That was brilliant. But as we sit here today, I definitely don't like the rumor that it was going to be Bruce and Lois. I would find it interesting she's pregnant. I'm fine with that. But the idea that it would be Bruce's baby, so let's throw some DC, CW, soap opera drama and an epic movie, I don't like that.
Yeah,
there's a lot of time. If there's a lot of time between Superman's death and the pregnancy, then yes. But like the time that there was,
you couldn't even tell she was pregnant. It couldn't.
I'm pretty sure this movie is supposed to take place 1 month after Batman v Superman.
Yeah,
I think I heard that earlier.
Too soon, bro. Too soon.
And plus, doesn't this remind you of Pearl Harbor? Have y'all seen Pearl Harbor?
Yeah.
Well, Ben Affleck was in that movie as well. He's died.
I would not want that. That's stupid Pearl Harbor triangle. Gosh, dang it. Don't bring that into my DC movie.
So I'm glad that didn't actually happen.
That would have been a repeat nightmare for Ben Affleck. Oh, my gosh. Woo!
There's something that we never mentioned, or nobody mentioned during the whole thing, and I want to it was a small thing, but I want to see what everyone thought about it, and that's Ryan Choi being part of the movie. And Ryan Choi is one of the Atoms.
Yeah,
there's multiple people that take up the main.
And I don't know much about the Atom. The only thing I know about the Atom, sadly, comes from the Arrowverse, where Brandon Routh played whatever the other guy's name was.
Yeah, that's Ray Palmer.
Ray Palmer. Thank you. Yeah, I forgot that. So I don't know much about it. I thought it was cool because of that show. I knew who that guy was, and I was like, well, if we ever move forward, we have that planted.
Yeah, I know. Zack Snyder said, or I'm pretty sure he said that he was trying to get them to make an Atom movie back when he was still working with Warner Brothers. I don't think he was going to direct it, but he was trying to get it made to be like somewhat of kind of a spin-off of Justice League.
Yeah.
I would have been interested in seeing that. I've liked Atom ever since I've known who he is, so I wouldn't complain if we got more.
DC Ant-Man.
Pretty much.
Sure. Pretty much it.
And maybe that's probably why we haven't done that yet, because, you don't want to... I feel like DC and Marvel borrow from each other a lot. Green Arrow and Hawkeye, Quicksilver and Flash. And so you probably don't want to dive in Atom yet, because like Ant-Man is so well received and it's hilarious. So it's kind of like... Yeah.
And now that you mention it, real quick, you earlier you mentioned something about we've seen Quicksilver do his little speedster thing, and I'm not sure exactly how many different ways you could present a speedster. Mm-hmm. But one thing I'd like to point out that I pointed out to Seth while we were watching it is I love the cinematography when Flash is doing it. The lightning, that's coming across, and how it changes like all the colors. Everything is just it becomes brighter and crisper and cleaner because of the lightning flash, and the lightning flashes are slower. It's just a little something I wanted to point out. The cinematography during his sequences is something that I think is an extra element that doesn't previously exist, and it really makes it Flash's moment as opposed to just a speedster moment.
You know, it's funny. In the theatrical cut, the lightning ended up getting on my every last nerve. And again, like how it feels like since everything was presented differently in this movie, presented in a different light, it's like I went into this with a totally different mindset. And I saw what you saw, Steve. I enjoyed the effect that lighting had, the way it would change, the way it would move. And like I even found when he's reversing time, I'm kind of hypnotized by the lightning as one branch of it arcs out, hits a light here, or one branch does that. And I'm like, this is more hypnotic. Like and it's probably the same in both movies, but something about, I guess, shifting a mindset. I saw it different.
Yeah. The lightning is a character in itself almost.
Yeah.
A sidekick.
There's that one sequence, remember, where that those rocks, that rubble's falling on the people, and then he just runs and the people are looking up.
Oh my god!
In this like a lightning field of silhouettes of him. Like, why did they leave that out? That was so epic, man. And it's their perspective of him running this time, not him. You know, so I thought that was really unique.
That was amazing. And oh gosh. All right, we've gone 2 hours and 15 minutes. So let's begin to close it out. And before we do, and we get into some closing statements. Anything else that we may have missed in this that you would love to bring up right now?
I have nothing.
I've got nothing. I think I got all my notes covered over here, so I'm good.
Ask me 5 minutes after this ends, because that's when all my ideas will start.
Right. Yeah, that's how it goes for me. All right, one more time. Starting with Stevie, going to Rudy. Where can people find you and subscribe to you?
Well, again, my name is Stevie Cade. My son, Seth, is also with us here. We are Film Trigger. You can find us, obviously, on YouTube. Just look up Film Trigger. We're the only Film Trigger that pops up. We are also under that same name in Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Vero.
Nice. And everybody, my name is Rudy. You can find me at Rudy's Movie Reviews on YouTube. Just type that in. I love doing retro movie reviews, and I've started making short films. If you're a fan of Silent Hill, I made a fan-made PT film this couple months ago. So I'm gonna make a little more short films and sequences this year. So if you want to see little short horror films and retro reviews, go to Rudy's Movie Reviews, type it in, subscribe, and check it out.
Call me if you need actors. That sounds awesome.
I didn't know you did a little short film. I'm gonna check it out. I've dabbled in that years ago. Yeah, there's a few films out there. You ever do the 48 Film Festival?
No, nothing that elaborate. I shot this on a phone. So when you check it out, it's like a first-person, reenactment of PT, the Silent Hills, a game that came out years ago.
I'll send you some stuff. I'd like to see yours as well.
Great,
that's awesome. Well, definitely head over to their channels and hit subscribe. And hit subscribe right here on Durbania as well, and hit that bell so you're notified. And Sunday, I'm going to head over to Cody Leach's channel, where we're going to do our State of the DCEU. How will this movie impact the DCEU? How will it impact its state? I don't even know all that we're going to go over. We'll probably dive into some stuff we did here at the same time. This is looking at the overall DCEU and the craziness that this film did. What impact is it going to have? So Sunday, Cody Leach's channel. Be sure to be there as well. You can find me on Twitter at World of Durbania, or Facebook, just search Durbania. So I want to say thank you to everybody that's in the comments right now. Several of them have been here the entire 2 hours and 17 minutes. How awesome is that? So thank you all so much for joining and being a part of this. And we will catch you all